for our select board meeting on this Saturday. First order of business is public comment. Is there anybody in the audience? I only see town employees, but you're welcome to make a public comment, Shirley, if you want. Okay, so I don't see anybody here to make a public comment. Eric, is there anybody online?
No one online, but then just in logistics for the day, lunch. Does anyone on the board want lunch?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then the biggest question, where to get lunch from? Meat and seafood, Panera Bread, and another place.
Yeah, I don't care. No.
I'm just looking for a sandwich.
Yeah.
So we'll, Shirley will print out. Well, actually, we were trying to print out a menu earlier, but these websites don't really have printable menus that much. But we'll circulate something mid-morning anyway, and we'll get that squared away.
I do recall that one time there was during our retreat that sandwiches were served, and the Observer reported them as gourmet sandwiches. Whatever is offered, I would appreciate if it's not gourmet. So.
Maybe some gas station subs if that's
Yeah.
better.
Peanut butter and jelly.
Gas station sushi. Okay, so can we get into the budget? So first up, our town clerk. Good morning.
Morning.
The floor is yours.
Thank you. I'm Sarah Mason, and the town clerk for Williston, and I'm here to answer any questions that anybody has about my budget and the budget that falls under elections. It's pretty straightforward, doesn't change very much, and most of you have seen it before.
You know, it looks like you just sort of fluctuate on whether or not there's an election that year.
A little bit, yeah. You know, and Shirley and I, we made a note in that side margin just to realize that, you know, when there is no primary election in August and there's no general in November, then we don't really need to have that space filled in. But knowing if you look at the past, you know, the drafts and the actuals from the previous years, you can see when it goes up and when it goes down is really depending on if we're in an on or off year. So this one coming up, there's just going to be town meeting in spring of 26, and then August and November will fall in the next one. So you're right, it is just sort of up and down depending on what kind of election year we're in. And
Sarah, if we did end up having a bond vote off cycle, how much does a local town meeting, town bond vote cost to run?
maybe 1,000, 1,500. I mean, you have to deal with, well, again, if it's a yes/no question, that's sort of what we ran into last time with the revoting.
Right.
When we did a paper ballot and it was homemade and it was yes/no, and anyone that worked that one kind of realized how easy it was when you don't involve the tabulator. You know, it's, and even the counting wasn't that bad. So I'd be paying for poll workers, a little bit of food. If we didn't program a tabulator and it was simply a yes/no, that's really pretty cheap.
Okay.
You know, hundreds of, less than 1,000. I'd have to pay people and I'd have to pay, you know, not much at all.
Print something out.
Exactly, yep. You know, and you could, yeah, general elections cost a lot more. You know, like I said, when people say elections are fair and free and fair, or whatever the phrase is, they don't really mean what it costs to put it on. They are free to come to, but they certainly do cost money. The general, obviously being the biggest, town meeting can run, you know, 1,500 either side of those numbers, and it kind of depends on how many ballots I order, how many people we expect, and who I have working, and how late we have to stay to chase, you know, numbers around. But for the most part, things stay fairly consistent, and then Shirley and I usually have a little bit of a buffer. Ordering numbers of ballots, you know, that participation is just going up. I think people just are becoming more engaged the more they hear about voting and budgets and taxes in schools. So I tend to, as Terry knows, always round up on how many ballots I order, because running out is the worst. So that's not one where you want to sort of be like, oh, maybe this amount will do, because it will come back to make everyone's evening pretty miserable. So when I have to put in my school number, you know, I always also round up on that one when some of the other towns are a little bit lower, but we are the biggest one that, of the 5 schools that feed out there. So I tend to, you know, give ourselves a good buffer on our town and the school ballots and the number that we order, so. But again, everything's relatively consistent. We do kind of have a buffer. I've never really gone over on any of these items, and, you know, it really is kind of remarkable how consistent things stay, and the amount of people that come for certain elections is relatively even. Anybody else have any other questions? You are here. I was gonna say, I don't see the fire chief, so I thought we were going to have to
Stall.
come up with, exactly, come up with some other topics, but like I said, this will be the easiest budget you
Yes.
see today.
Yes.
Matt usually argues with you on that.
Okay, any other questions? from the
Truly, no
board?
questions?
No?
No? Great,
Okay,
all right.
Thank you.
thank you very much.
Thanks, Sarah.
Thanks,
Thank
Sarah.
you. Thank you, Sarah.
Panera menu, if you just write your word on the back, then I will order it.
Okay.
Oh, nice.
Thanks.
Thanks, Shirley.
Let's- Yeah, I'll pull it up. It's the one you sent me last night, right? From this morning. It didn't come through yet.
Gonna be a busy day today, huh? The snow?
Oh, yeah, gee, it scares me already on the commute in. It was, there's a lot of activity going on.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, it was more than I expected.
Yeah, it was,
Shoveling this early this morning.
Well, more snow and then underneath it was, you know, because it was so cold, it was ice underneath.
Yeah,
Yeah.
packed down.
We've forgotten what it's like to have snow in Vermont.
I know,
Oh, yeah.
every year, that big snow, you forget.
you know, when it snows the last week of October, people don't have their snow tires on. I'm sympathetic.
Maybe
but,
I'll
people don't know.
use my Outlook and reopen it. Maybe that's the issue. Let's see. If not, I can just connect you on Zoom too. Let's see.
May not have connected to the firehouse.
Yeah, I guess it's here. I'll just give you the Zoom link. Oh, wait, here we go. Just got it. Okay, I'll share my screen. There we go.
Perfect.
Technology, it worked.
We could skip lunch, but then it would be really bad for the, whoever comes in.
Yeah, whoever's last, right?
The police department right after
Police
lunch.
department would be, that'd be tough.
We're all set whenever you are, Ted.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
Send it, ready?
All right, yeah, yeah.
I'll apologize now. I have two sets of glasses. One is for addressing you, and one is for me to see what I've written on the paper. I've ordered glasses, so I don't have to do this anymore. But bear with me if I look down and say, I can't see that now.
I used to work with a guy who kept both of them. He'd have like one pair here and he put that pair and bring them
Yeah.
down. So annoying.
I buy them in bulk at the local retailer because I go through so many. So, seriously. Thanks so much for having me this morning. I want to acknowledge the work that went into this budget, really, from Manager Wells and certainly Shirley, who works tirelessly to support us, and thank you for your time. Just a quick overview of what the department performs for you, and you probably remember not too long ago where I came back to say that the role of the fire department, even though we have the title of the fire department, has changed, and that the services that we provide to the community are much more robust than the title reflects. And so, just to review some of that, our fire department has a number of functions throughout the community. Our primary demand for service is EMS, emergency medical services, where we operate at the paramedic level and staff ALS ambulances. We also provide ALS service at that level on the engine or the ladder truck in case we don't have a transport ambulance available. So even though our ambulance may be at the hospital, the members that staff the engine provide first response and initiate care at that higher level. So we equip the first due suppression piece, if it's the engine or the ladder, with all the same materials that the ambulance would have on it. So it has a 12-lead EKG, it has all the medications. We have medication boxes, lock boxes on the suppression pieces so that when we go out and our ambulance is already out, we don't reduce the level of care that we can provide to our public. So we can initiate that care, and either if we can get a second ambulance staffed, or in the absence of extra staffing, we rely on mutual aid to do that. But that's the tiered approach that we work through for emergency medical services. So just because an ambulance isn't available doesn't mean that you don't have the capability for us to start treatment of patients at that advanced life support level. We also answer fire alarm responses across the community, and that may be everything from commercial fire alarms in buildings and businesses and commercial occupancies, but also goes right down to the private homeowner who may not understand what 3 beeps on a smoke detector means or 4 beeps on a smoke detector means. And the difference between those two is one is that smoke detector is sensing smoke with the 3 beeps, and 4 beeps is a carbon monoxide alarm. So just having that awareness, when the public often calls, they don't necessarily call 911 for those calls, they'll call the firehouse direct. And we're sure to put an engine out to check on those people, one, to make sure that the home is actually safe, because we have sophisticated gas meters that can meter for hazards in the home. The other part is that if they have a faulty detector, we work to ensure that they at least have a single station smoke detector that's battery powered, so they have coverage in the absence of while they wait to get more definitive and lasting protection through the replacement of that detector. So we won't often leave anyone without detection in their home when they call us.
You respond on both, right, wouldn't you? I mean, if someone had a CO detector go off, don't they call the fire department?
Yes, yeah, we would encourage them to call 911.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Fire suppression, that's the easy part of the title, and so going out to do that, that ranges from the simple to the more complex. Say simple, more routine would be motor vehicle fires. The more complex are building fires, certainly commercial building fires are the highest risk for us. Fire and Life Safety Program, Deputy Chief Gary works tirelessly in collaboration with the State Fire Marshal's Office and Planning and Zoning here at the local level to work to enforce fire codes. Now, currently we don't have the authority for the inspection. The state of Vermont has the authority for that inspection, but we ask that they partner with us, because we need to be out in these buildings to be aware of the conditions that are occurring. And so he works hand in hand with a local assistant fire marshal through the state, right here at the Williston office. The department, in my tenure, we've worked to try to progress the mission, and that includes the technical rescue capability. The department certainly provided vehicle extrication capability prior to my arrival, but we worked to build vehicle and machinery, so when we have people that get caught up in industrial accidents, we have the ability to safely remove those people from an industrial accident. That includes farm equipment or even commercial, like conveyors or augers or anything like that. So we have specialized kits that we've built on 2 of our units to help address that. In addition, we've expanded our ice and cold water rescue capability. So we've purchased ice rescue suits. So if there's an event in flat water or ice without moving water underneath it, so we're certainly not going to go out in the river. We don't have that capability. But for ponds and static water sources, we have the ability to go out and mitigate that rescue. And one of the newer initiatives that we're working on is technical rescue at the rope operations and hopefully rope technician level in the future. We've invested time, resources, personnel resources in getting that training out there. We've built that out to at least allow for initial rope access from heights or in complex locations.
We have a river going through here, so moving water rescue would be this.
So we summon the assistance of mutual aid resources. So Colchester Technical Rescue, the South Burlington Fire Department, and then Vermont Urban Search and Rescue would be our go-to people. The challenge is there. Colchester Technical Rescue is going to be a quick response. South Burlington will be a quick response. The State Urban Search and Rescue is going to delayed response. So.
Yeah.
Hostile event response is something that we really don't like to think about, but must have in the forefront of our mind. And this is what you'd see coined across the industry, maybe as an active shooter event or some of these dynamic events that involve people. Often there's a number of components here. This is really a partnership with law enforcement. We work to actually build this capability out. We've trained the department, even our new hires through the probationary members, to this TECC, which is a Tactical Emergency Casualty Care level. We outfit all of our members with ballistic vests and helmets, and we have TECC go bags, where we actually go out and provide hasty treatment in the warm zone in collaboration with law enforcement. This is a service that's new and emerging within the last 5 to 10 years, and it's often a struggle for municipalities to be able to bring that out because of the high expense. A lot of that was accomplished really through organic work of members of the department, where a lot of the vests were repurposed vests that were replaced from other law enforcement partners, and we've got the hand-me-downs. We did invest a little bit of funds I think in 2021 towards the purchase of those helmets so we could get that out. But those sit on the riding positions of all of our units. We also conduct hazardous materials mitigation. We're really the first response across the community to identify, isolate, deny entry into hazardous materials response. We may not be the people that are going to necessarily contract to clean that up, but we're out there to initiate that call where we partner with the state hazardous materials response team. And we've done that a number of times throughout the community. Because of our shipping hubs in the commercial industry that we have a high likelihood of that. And we've seen a number of complex responses that are long duration responses across the community. So all of our members, part of their Firefighter 1 training is to the hazardous materials awareness and operations level. So we can mitigate small incidents, but incidents of technical complexity, we really rely on the professionals and get the scientists in to deal with those. Community risk reduction is a term where we work with partners and we use data to drive thoughtful and well-purposed programs, such as when we see slip and falls in senior living, we ask, what are the causes of those slip and falls in senior living? And one of the examples of that is something that was originated in the fire department simply as a nightlight program where people don't have illumination as they transition from their sleeping quarters into their restroom. And so we can if we can help eliminate that, or even through assessment of their walking conditions. Maybe they have a rug that is slippery underneath and doesn't adhere to the floor, or just removing something like that. But those community risk reduction projects are often really organic, where we look at our data and say, what's happening across the community, how can we eliminate that risk or start to reduce that risk? And then the last bullet that you see here, and I think this is what the word that I used for you when I talked about the new role of the fire department, we're really ambassadors of humanity. The change in the healthcare system has changed our job in the fire department, and so we're not simply an agency that will roll out and provide a Band-Aid and a transport to the hospital. We deal with all complexities of medical issues across the community. That may include mental health, that may include substance abuse disorders, and it also includes end of life. And so I see a lot of compassion throughout the fire department and the way that our members serve with the public, that it's very difficult for me to say simply in a bullet here, and I wouldn't want to violate any protected health information, but that occurs across the community, and it's something I'm very proud of because our members and our firefighters and EMS providers certainly take the time to go above and beyond to make sure that they represent the profession and the dignity of the public that they serve. So it's difficult sometimes to put a price tag on that. It is, and it takes its toll. But I wanted to make sure to recognize that work of our people. Next slide, please. So you have the advantage over maybe some of the general public, so I bring this up in this meeting to see how the call volume is increasing. You get to see that in our quarterly reports, and I've pulled some data here out of the last 4 years to try to look at that and to show what the demand for service is happening. So this shows 4 years of data. That average is about 10% increase in demand for service per year, and we're projected to actually have our busiest year on record if the numbers continue to clear 2,500 incident emergency responses this year by the end of calendar year 2024.
You think that's proper, more people in town, more buildings in town, more traffic in town? What would you attribute that to?
I could dive into it more. What I'll say is the demand for EMS increases. And as we have an older population with a change in healthcare, we become the alternative to several people's primary care provider in the absence of knowing what to do, or as we have an older population that we serve, and that older population is looking to live independently at home instead of an assisted living or a skilled nursing facility, then those demands increase for medical.
Yeah, I'd like to thank you as your ambassadors of humanity, because I know I've seen an increase in just personally in that.
Yeah.
They've always been very good.
Appreciate that, Mike. Gina, I can break it down to show
I'm
you.
just curious.
Yeah, it's some days we increase the number of fire alarm responses, or a day like today, you're going to see an increase in motor vehicle crashes. And does that, some part of my mind always runs through that. Is that a change in a clean roads policy, right? Is that a change in the amount of salt that we use on our roads? And does it give us that? Does that contribute? There's all these other factors that certainly run through my mind and say, well, why is this happening?
Yeah.
So.
Eric and I were chatting about this a little bit yesterday. I think it would be beneficial to our community members for that information, for the information regarding like kind of what the increase in our call volume and our response volume is specifically related to, because I do think there seems to be some wrong sense of what that is related to, within the community. I hear from several people that they think it's related to, drugs or, overdoses or things like that. And that is not what we're hearing, and that's not what the data is showing. And so if we could, show people what the data really is saying, I think that would be helpful.
What we'll do is try to work on that, Greta, to maybe put that out in our report for the town report.
Yep.
And break it down,
Yep.
at least the medical calls where we have the ability to try to put those in general categories.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you.
Certainly if it's related to demographics, that's not going away and probably getting bigger, so that's,
Yeah.
Keeping on top of anything we can do to mitigate that would be important.
Yeah.
Not the demographics, mitigating the calls.
Yeah, and some part of that's difficult to get to that granular level, right? Because there's no socioeconomic data point that we measure in our patient care reports. There, we can look at addresses in general to say, all right, do you go to one address more than another?
I was thinking age when you were talking age with demographics, is what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
So.
resemble that remark.
Yeah, we can certainly have our team dive into that. Next slide, please. This slide addresses concurrent emergencies, and that's really a testimony as how busy is busy, what's happening across the community. So this is year-to-date information as of this past Wednesday was the day that I put this together. 574 times when we were on an emergency in 2024, a second emergency or other emergencies came in. And out of that 574 times, 200 of those instances, we had to request the response from mutual aid organizations. So that's either our partners at Richmond Rescue, Essex Rescue, South Burlington Fire Department, and these do include mutual aid fire responses as well, so where we've had multiple alarm fires and needed assistance from other fire departments. But, you know, what this goes back to is when we, and I'm gonna get into staffing here in a later slide, when we are at minimum staffing levels, we don't have the ability to staff that second ambulance outside of the command staff. So either Deputy Chief Gary or myself will come out of our office to staff that second ambulance, and Manager Wells got to see that Thursday of this week where, you know, we're just stacking calls on top of each other. So it's something I think we're really gonna have to look hard at for the FY27 budget, to look at alternatives here. How do we address that trend? What happens is that when we rely on mutual aid partners, it takes them out of their response jurisdiction. So when Essex Rescue comes in to address our concurrent medical call, and then they have a second medical call within their community, then our ambulance ends up in their community, or Richmond. So it's almost like this domino effect where we chase each other until the cycle slows to get actually ambulances back within our own jurisdiction. So we appreciate their support, but at some point, if this demand reaches something, and this is where I think the community-driven strategic plan will help us forecast some of this and have the forethought about, hey, what's this going to look like? How are we going to address this in the future? The next slide talks about our staffing and I share this really for the general public who may be listening. We have 3 shifts that work 24-hour shifts and 48 hours off. So 24 hours on, they come in at 6:30 in the morning and they go home at 6:30 the next morning. The minimum staffing with the collective bargaining agreement with the IAFF local is 5 career personnel, and that means we staff the engine company with 3 personnel and the ambulance with 2 personnel. So that's the minimum staffing of 5. We currently have 3 career vacancies. We're working on language in our labor management team and with Manager Wells to get those vacancies advertised so we can get people in to fill those. The call staff, and you've heard this saga time and time again from us, is really kind of a revolving door. We have some incumbents that are dedicated, and we sincerely appreciate their tenured service, but we often will find ourselves bringing call staff on. We train them up, and we're a stepping stone for other career organizations where they'll hire our call staff out. We enjoy the service that they provide our department during our tenure, their tenure with us. But right now we only have 8 people on the call staff. Of those 8, only 3 have EMS certification. So one might think that, okay, well, the call staff will come in on a recalled event and then they can go out, but if I don't have an EMS provider, I can't provide that false sense of security to the public because I don't have anybody that's medically trained. They can go and offer assistance to mutual aid ambulances, but really it's in a lifting and support capacity. It's not a patient care capacity. 3 of those call staff members do have that EMS certification, and we're appreciative of that work, and we're trying to build that capacity out, but we see people come and go, and I think it's really been the nature, because the 8 people that are on today, and I look back at last year's presentation, they're different 8 people, right? 3, as you may remember, we had the opportunity to receive a Fire Act grant for driver-operator training. It was a $100,000 grant that we were awarded from the federal government to get people trained to drive our fire engines and the aerial ladder truck. we tried to focus on making that available for our call staff, and we had 4 call staff members take advantage of that. Right now, one of those members has been offered a career fighter position, and we expect that that person will transition in January to that career position. So that'll leave us with only 3 driver operators of the call staff. So if the other 5 show up, they sit at the firehouse and wait for a certified driver, or you'll see later on here when I show you the utility truck, that's one of the vehicles that they can take because they have we train them to the emergency vehicle driver operator, but they don't necessarily need the depth of operation and understanding of how to run complex fire pumps in the ladder truck.
Yeah, excuse me, I always try to think of how your shifts work. I was thinking it was 48 hours on per week at a time, and then every 3rd week they do 3 days.
Yeah, so it's every 3rd day, essentially, they work. And so some organizations set it up in a cycle for FLSA, like a 21-day cycle period, where the average work week is 53 hours of work and then 3 hours of overtime. So a 56-hour work week is how it works out. So if you think about that, if you would talk it in some unofficial coin term in the organization is a go-around, meaning that if you work on Monday, Thursday, Sunday, 1 week, and then you work your Tuesday, Friday, you can see where all that keeps going back through. So it's every 3 days.
Okay, I worked a lot of goofy shifts at IBM.
Yeah.
For the non-IBMers, it was always difficult to explain your schedule,
And it changes, organization by organization. The trend really is moving to a 42-hour work week and adding a 4th shift or a 4th platoon. But that means adding those new positions, right? And that's a costly endeavor. Other departments are, looking at alternatives because their work-life balance is really affecting employee morale and how they navigate things at home. So you'll see like the South Burlington Fire Department has gone to this Kelly Day, where every 7th shift they have a day off, each member, so they cycle a member out. So they work a reduced shift, like a 48-hour work week there. And that'll start in their 26, I think is what you said.
Yeah, because nobody works a 40-hour week anymore, a regular, not many.
Yeah, certainly not in emergency services. I think the lowest shift hours I've ever seen is 42.
Yeah, and by contract, there's always 5 employees working on a shift as part of the union. So we're running short with 3 vacancies right now. If someone's on a vacation day, out sick, then we have to call people in and order people in to make sure we always have those 5 there. And sometimes that 24 hours gets split in different ways. So yeah, that can cascade over time as well. When we're fully staffed and things are never clean on paper as they wind up to be.
Yeah, I was gonna wait to the end, but maybe now's a good time. I see in some of the retail stores, they have retail sales in the crowded aisles. It's really difficult to navigate through the aisles. Sometimes it's impossible to navigate through the aisles with any material that you're trying to purchase.
Mm-hmm.
I know that's not your responsibility, that's the fire marshal's responsibility, but I'd just like to.
So we notice it too, Mike, and although we don't have the authority necessarily to do that, we have relationships with those stores. So we have addressed this, and we've worked to address this with store management. We do that through our partnership with the local assistant fire marshal. So we'll make a phone call and say, here's what we're noticing. Do you have time to meet us over there? But a lot of times the store managers just need to be reminded because they get caught up in the hectic day and they're not paying attention to that. They're not in that mindset that maybe we're always that community safety egress mindset where they maybe aren't. Maybe they're worried about just keeping the doors open. So we have worked, and then where it was appropriate, we actually collaborate with Matt in planning and zoning and say, hey, this is an issue. So sometimes that escapes those the four walls of the business, and then it goes out into the parking and egress and other things. So there we do have a little bit more weight on the outside of those stores, but we're certainly aware of it, and we have been working. That's really where Deputy Chief Gary is. You'll see him, and we'll get a complaint into the firehouse, and we have no opportunity but to address that. We need to get right on that. So even though we don't have the authority, we have the relationships, and that's how a lot of that goes.
Okay, thank you. So that's also a zoning issue,
On the outside, it can be, condition of the zoning,
but not on the inside.
not necessarily on the inside. That becomes in the life safety and egress and the fire code.
With Christmas season and sales,
If you see it, certainly give us a shout, and we'll get right out there. We have the means to get out. Although we don't have the authority, most of the times they're very compliant, and they're just distracted with everything else that they're doing.
thank you.
You bet. The next slide really is just to highlight some of the notables in the operating budget. These are just the prompts. I'm going to go through each one of these in the following slides, but payroll and benefits, equipment maintenance, firefighting equipment, and dispatch. And so these are high dollar categories that I just wanted to showcase as we prepared this FY26 budget. Next slide, please. So 84% of the operating budget is payroll and benefits. So we can't deliver the service that we provide without our people. And the service, as you've heard, and you realize this through contract negotiations with the bargaining unit, other employers are competing, right? We're all looking for people, and in order for us to remain competitive, we have to work to keep competitive salaries and benefits out there. So at the end of the day, when you look at the larger number, that's about being able to provide that service and taking care of good employees and make sure they're recognized for being valued people. And the other 16% is really about keeping the doors open at the firehouse and keeping equipment and apparatus on the road and this operational capability. Next slide.
And we have a settled contract with these.
Yep, the current contract's through June 30th of 2026, so it'll be through this budget.
Great.
The equipment maintenance is often a large line item. You'll see that we've projected 85,000. This demand continues to grow. And a lot of this, what I wanted to showcase here is this isn't necessarily discretionary spending. This is spending that's required of us by the industry standard. An example, the photo that you see here is ground ladder testing. So every year, all of our fire service ladders need to be tested. So the ground ladders, the portable ladders that you see on the fire trucks, and including the aerial ladder, all of this has to go through this third-party testing. That doesn't stop at our ladders. It goes to our fire pumps. It goes to all of our firefighting hoses. Every year we bring in a third-party vendor to comply with the national standard. That's built there, one, to protect the firefighters, right, and keep them safe, but also to ensure we have operational capability. You don't want somebody pulling up to do a rescue with someone hanging out the second floor and realize that your ladder's going to fail, or have a halyard, which is the rope that extends the extension ladder, and have that rotted off. It's really about making sure that we have operational readiness. So those expenses that you see in that are part of really the safety package of ensuring operational capability. That goes hand in hand with, tires and brakes and oil changes, just to make sure that we're protecting the investment. So,
Chief, what's going on with that ladder in that picture? Is it being bent to see if it breaks?
no, so that's this is called the bridge test. So these ladders are tested different than your consumer ladder. So it has to be able to support 750 pounds. And so this is that bridge test. So you will see on either end, they put it on essentially sawhorses. It's sitting there. And that weight is that national test. And so they'll put that down there. And you say, well, wait a minute, that ladder's not designed to do that. But that's the advantage of the fire department ladder, is that it is designed to do that. And we use this as frequently. I think it was 2 weeks ago, we went on a mutual aid fire to Shelburne. This is exactly what we did. We took the ladder, we put it across our rear porches because we needed to cut the gable end of the building open, put it across the rear porches on the porch railings, put the ladder like this, and we made a scaffolding. We went and scabbed some scrap plywood from the backyard, and then we made a safe area of operation. And that's how we got the members up there to cut the gable end out so we could get in operation to vent the fire and then get members in to suppress the fire. The locals were very impressed, but if you knew, right, if you know this is part of the industry, if you know that ladder's tested to that, you won't second guess that. I wouldn't recommend ever doing that with your homeowner ladder. Right? Nobody's gonna do that. That ladder's not gonna do that. So, yeah. And then it gives you that peace of mind. When it's dark and you're out there and having to make difficult decisions, you need to trust your equipment, and the way we do that is making sure that we adhere to these testing standards.
Would you prefer aluminum or fiberglass?
Aluminum. Aluminum.
Because of weight?
Weight. Yeah, I appreciate the fiberglass thought, right? Everybody thinks the fiberglass because of the conductivity issue, but they're just so dang heavy. And even there's differences in manufacturers. Stop by the firehouse, I'll have a coffee, I'll take you through the difference.
I believe you.
Yeah. The next slide talks about the firefighting equipment, and you'll see there's a $16,000 line item here, and Manager Wells and Shirley both did their due diligence and said, Aaron, I need you to go back. That seems like a really high number, and so we pulled all of the invoices and for the 23s, and this is really where that number came from. We did change it up, and this photo is from just this week. I'll say this is we hired a third-party vendor, which is that truck, and they came in and did, I think they did 69 sets of turnout gear. So every year, again, like the fire hose and the ladders, we have to have an advanced cleaning and inspection of our firefighting turnout gear. So that's to get all those contaminants off. We have a commercial extractor at the firehouse, but these folks really have like the next layer of degreaser and all this other sophistication. That truck, inside of that truck, has commercial washers, dryers, ultrasonic, whatever. I don't even have the technical expertise to tell you everything that truck has. It looks like a laundromat inside of that truck. And so those folks came in and over 2 days really knocked it out of the park. You see they took up all the station. What a very professional organization to go through that and inspect every one of those sets of gear, and then all the shortcomings that they identify in there, now you have to send that gear out for repair. So that's where that line item comes from. It's very expensive, but it's, again, about protecting our members. Other bits that come out of that line item is the technical rescue equipment, ropes, harnesses, hardware. Unfortunately, that stuff has an expiration, right? So you don't want to rely on the rope that's misstored, misused, or anything like that. And so after you have a true load, a technical rescue load on those ropes, or after a certain amount of years of service, those need to be replaced. And that's part of that, the ability to do that. We want to continue to build that out. We have operational areas where we need some extra harnesses for the rescuers, and then the hardware to do that. We've got a good foundation, like I said, initial access, but I'd really like to get us to the full capability of not only initial access, but able to mitigate complex rope rescues. The SCBA maintenance program is, again, an annual requirement where we have to have all of our SCBA, the air masks that we use, to have those inspected to make sure that they're flowing correctly, that all the components, because there's a lot of sophisticated electronic components in those. They're not simply a turn on and let it go. They have batteries and computer systems within them, and so we have to have those inspected annually. The last bullet shows the multi-gas meter program. I talked to you about that when we actually go out to answer the public call for smoke detector activations or carbon monoxide detector activation. Those meters, we have 5 gas capabilities, so it can measure for 5 specific gases. Well, in order to keep those calibrated, you have to buy the calibration gas. So that's a container of the calibration gas. Those containers are upwards of $800 per CalGas bottle. So when you see us ask for $3,000 for CalGas, it's because we need that to bump test and then to calibrate our sophisticated gas meters. Next slide. One of the other larger line items that you see there is dispatching services, and we continue to be supported by our partners at Shelburne Police Department. They, the contract we're projecting at greater than $60,000 this year. In FY26, we've reached out. We haven't heard back from them on what their anticipated fees for us are. So that's where we've put that in there. We are one of the busiest, if not the busiest agency, fire department agency that they dispatch for. Also within that is our records management software. So you remember that we worked with you folks to buy this new software as the other software was sunsetting. And we have about $20,000 allocated to maintain and for that annual service contract to keep that software up. And then the records management software link is that we're working with the vendor to provide the link right from the state Valcor product to our local product. This was something that was, earlier this year, we received a bill that was pushed down by Crosswinds Technology, which is the parent company for the Valcor RMS. And I essentially said, listen, we didn't budget for this. You can't just send us this bill. We need some time. And so that's why we built this extra the funding in to allow for us to build that CAD link between the two agencies. Next slide, please. You'll see that we reduced, training is really, we're working to replace Captain Nato and get somebody into that position. So right now, our 3 lieutenants, we've had some firefighters step up. Myself and the deputy are trying to fill in that training role. Here, this photo is, I'll just take you through what's happening here. This is a grant-funded opportunity where we applied for and worked with a partnership on state Homeland Security funds to get sophisticated high-lift airbags. And we actually worked in partnership to do this as a regional grant because no one else at the time of application had these airbag capability. And so we used data to drive this decision on the application. We had 23 commercial vehicle incidents, crashes, that we had responded to, which seems to be a high number. So that means tractor-trailer trucks, industry-related things such as these heavy equipment, but also in highway crashes involving commercial vehicles. And so we worked and we were awarded $23,000 to purchase these sophisticated, just 2 airbags. But we have the ability to actually now lift these very, very heavy things. We worked in partnership with the state urban search and rescue team, so if they're ever out on a collapse, because even they don't have that capability, that we will run those bags over and provide them to them or run that to the scene for them. So we did this initial training and worked with SD Ireland, who let us use essentially their equipment graveyard with the vendor to do this level of training. So these are some of the ways we try to save money. Instead of paying for that training opportunity, this was a partnership and a grant. What we also, just to follow the bullets, we work with the State Fire Academy to do annual live fire training. It would be, I don't think I'd be doing my job if I didn't put our firefighters, give them the opportunity to be exposed to live fire training where we can ride in on simulated building fires You know, we can look at a computer system all day long, but until you actually have the heat, smoke, and the anxiety of that event in a controlled training setting, it's not going to progress your fire department. So we often will partner with outside agencies such as South Burlington Fire, Burlington Fire. We've done it as far away as Rutland City Fire. We'll split the costs of renting or utilizing the live fire capability of the Vermont Fire Academy, and we'll send our members down there for several days so each shift can get an opportunity to train down there. And that costs us around $4,000 to when we do that partnership. One of the items that we did remove from this FY26 budget, and I'll explain why here in a minute, is the paramedic funding, paramedic training. So we're looking at building an application to the AFG Fire Act grant to cover that cost. And it's our hope that if we write a good grant, we've had history of being awarded that grant in the past for paramedicine, so that's what we're hoping to do here. So that grant's going to go in the next month, and then it will take us a year essentially to figure that out. By the time this rolls out, that we can start this program and we have 4 members that are interested in going to paramedic school right now. But that's why we removed, that was a $12,000 item that we removed. We also work to maintain our technical rescue capability. It's perishable skills. Never trust a rope rescue technician that has Velcro shoes, right? We need to make sure that they understand how to tie the knots, how those rope systems work, and if you don't do it every quarter, you're not going to be good at it. So we kept that technical rescue training in there. And then there's the disposables for props and training equipment. You can't build a roof prop without cutting the roof. So we have to buy the materials to cut the roof. We have to buy the simulated smoke materials that we have the non-toxic smoke to do the non-toxic smoke drills in. All of that costs money.
You miss being a young man doing all these training and
I do it.
exercising?
I do it. Come follow me. Next Saturday, I'll be doing live fire all day. Sunday, 15th. So,
Still find it fun?
absolutely. Absolutely.
Can't imagine.
That's the end of the report that I had for operating. And then the next I had capital buildings.
I had a question about your revenue.
I have it at the end, Jean.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, should we pause for questions now, or wait until the end for,
I only have a question about revenue, and he says he's coming back to it. so
Yeah, I mean,
otherwise-
if you,
okay, let's,
ambulance revenue, is that where you're at?
I just looked at all the revenue, and it was up quite a bit, but that's.
we'll wait.
Yep,
Okay.
we'll wait.
Okay. No worries.
I don't want to mess up your flow.
Capital buildings, the largest bit that you see here is the building is suffering the effects of maybe some design issues. So we're having water damage, and so Deputy Chief Gary really went above and beyond and worked with a vendor to get a quote on what it would cost to repair this and try to prevent it in the future. So that involves building out gutters or the installation of gutter systems at the station and then replacing some of the exterior siding on there. So you see that we've got about $46,000 slated for that repair. And then the next slide will show you just some even greater photos of that problem. Unfortunately, that slide on the right you really can't see well, but what's happening is we spent all that money on the roof system, but all the water drains off and then pools out, and it's taking its toll on the outside of the building. So in order for us to protect that investment, we're recommending that we take some capital steps to have this stuff repaired now.
And this is a project I recommended to use ARPA funds for some one-time money to address this.
Correct.
So in the budget, is it not in the operating budget then?
It's in the operating budget, in the capital budget with a funding source as ARPA or community projects funds.
We didn't change really anything else substantially on capital buildings, capital equipment. Those highlights here include the command and tow vehicle, utility vehicle, capital EMS, the hydraulic rescue tools, radios, turnout gear, and then fire equipment. And then I'll have each slide that will show this. The next slide, please. This year, we were able to utilize that capital funds to purchase the new utility vehicle. This vehicle allows us, it's really multifaceted. So this is what I told you, when the call staff aren't trained to be able to drive the fire engine, to understand how to run the fire pump, we train them first on this. So we train them on how to respond to emergencies. We put them through an emergency vehicle driver training program. And once they're credentialed there, this is really where the call staff can start with the operation of this truck. It's the primary mover hauler for our UTV and the trailer. So we have the tracked all-terrain vehicle, the UTV, that we'll do for rescues up on any of the hiking trails or at Catamount or off-road. We've used it a number of times to assist with the PD. We also use this vehicle for wildland fire response. So you see that the basket on that left side, that's where all of the wildland fire tools go, and then we take all of the wildland fire backpacks, and those go on the inside of that truck as well. But this is also, we do the plowing of the fire station, so we do our own snow removal, and this is the truck that's used to do the snow removal at the fire station. We're supported by Public Works because we don't have the ability to spread the salt, so Public Works will spread the salt after we do the snow removal. Capital EMS equipment, as I said, really our demand for service, the largest part of our demand for service is medical responses. The 12-lead monitors, which is the blue monitor that you see the EKG printout on the bottom right, one of those monitors is over $50,000, $52,000. So this capital EMS equipment fund works to replace these monitors because they have, like anything with technology, they have a life cycle, and we have to prepare ourselves for their end of life. The last monitor, if you remember last year, Manager Wells we had this in the budget. I forecasted that we would be able to apply some unallocated funds from the AFG grant for the PADO and ADO program, and we were actually able to make that a reality. So the last one we just purchased, we did it with federal funds that were a high priority item for the AFG grant. So we have 5 of these across the department. All 3 of our ambulances now have one of these. This is what allowed us to do this, because before the ability to purchase that 5th one, our 3rd ambulance could not be licensed at the ALS level because it needs to have one of these assigned to the truck. So all 3 ambulances now have this 12-lead monitor capability, and the primary suppression piece in the ladder truck all have this as well. The device up in the upper right is really where technology, when I was providing intubation level care in my past, we didn't have this sophisticated video laryngoscope. This is a video laryngoscope that allows us to have this great screen for complex intubations, and it gives us a good visualization to allow our paramedics to intubate patients that need supplemental airway. And so one of those video laryngoscopes is $5,000. And then the last little bit is we maintain 24 automated external defibrillators. So all of our suppression pieces, all of our staff cars, and the police cars, and as well as some of the town buildings, so we maintain all of that through our budget.
So the first one where it says 12 lead, you have 5 of those, but the next 2, you actually have 24 defibrillators.
You're right.
Okay.
You're right, yeah. I got caught
The
in it.
numbers thing.
Yeah, you're
If
right
you'd
on,
said
Gene,
5, 12,
thank
it
you.
would have been harder.
Yep. Yeah, it's the typo. The next slide talks about hydraulic rescue tools. So these originally were purchased a few years ago. When the department bought these, they too have a life cycle, and unfortunately, so this is us trying to forecast the replacement of these. Each one of those tools is about $13,000 per individual tool, and we own 6 of those, the different components of there. So it's not only that, but it's the vehicle stabilization struts. And so when vehicles are on its roof or on its side, we need these struts to help stabilize the car to get people out. And you say, well, how frequently does that happen? We've used these tools in the last 2 weeks, and all of the tools, like all 4 of these, or 5 of these tools were in operation on a motor vehicle crash on Oak Hill. And then last weekend, we had the struts and stabilization to hold a car that was resting on its side on St. George Road in order to safely get those people out. So yes, they're a high-cost item, but they're in demand, and we actually have that liability. And the last bit is high-pressure airbags. I spoke to you that we had 2 of those bags provided by the grant, but moving forward, we also have additional airbags, so they're not all, it's not always we're lifting something heavy like that. Sometimes you just need it to separate rollers, so we have little airbags that are only 4x4 or 6x6 inches that we use to remove people from vehicles or machinery where you just need finite little bits of space to get maybe a hand out of a machinery roller or something like that. All of that is supported out of this capital equipment because those 2 have shelf life, and so you have to be forecast when to replace those by the standard. Next slide, please. Radios, turnout gear, and fire equipment. We continue to, each set of turnout gear is around $3,900 for the pants. So it's pricey, and then every member has 2 sets of that. So we capitalized this a few years ago, and every 10 years it has to be replaced for every member, just due to the industry standard. So we tried to stagger that, so every 5 years you get a new set, and then we'll continue to do that. So your primary set goes to your backup set, and your backup will then sunset out of service. And then and for those, we are partnering with other agencies that'll take this out of the country to areas that don't have fire suppression capability, or they don't have the means. And so we take expired fire gear and we'll partner with that fire mission and give this to third world countries that don't have the capability. Even though it's decertified in the United States, there's no rules in a lot of these other areas. The thermal imager that you see in the center there, again, these are a high-cost item. We were able to vector a little bit of the Fire Act grant money in the same funds that we use, the unallocated funds to use for the 12-lead monitor. We were able just to purchase 2 more of those through grant funds. And then finally, the biggest liability that we have is the self-contained breathing apparatus that you see up on this upper right. And so that's capital funds that are going towards the replacement of those in the future.
How do the thermal image devices work? I mean, it's handheld, obviously.
Yes, sir.
You know, and can you do you use it for measuring the temperature of a door, a wall, or?
So it can do temperature, but it's a contrast thing. So the computer inside of it, there's a number of settings there, but in smoke, it can distinguish between where you can't see anything. It can help you identify a person that's down inside of that smoke-filled environment. And I could do that right from the room, from the doorway of the room, and with a scan, you actually see that person to get them in. So it's not wasted energy with a blind search.
Okay, so it's used more for a live body.
For the life safety aspect, that's what we focus on. That's where the value is. Every day we use it to diagnose simple things, like when we have a light ballast, we'll be able to show the temperature differences on a light ballast with that tool as well. So if we have a burned out light ballast, we're trying to identify which fixture it is. That helps us with it.
Everyone should have one.
Yeah.
A quick question on that, maybe this is a question for you, Eric. The Public Safety Equipment Fund needs by year says, is the command and tow vehicles that belong to fire or police?
Yep, that's fire. Those are also the command vehicles that the chief and deputy chief have, and they also have a towing capability.
So we have redundancy for if the utility is out, or we need to have redundancy to be able to pull that UTV.
Right.
So this is where I had fire revenue, Gene. As the demand for service, as our increase happens with the ambulance, that's where we're seeing an increase in that revenue. So, you know, we've partnered with our third-party vendor, ECP, on the contract for ambulance billing. And this is what we're projected for FY '26 to be at.
Yeah, I'm never pushing back on increased revenue, but I had two questions. One is that it actually looks like you're projecting lower than what we actually saw in '24. And the reason I was questioning that was, didn't we just approve a policy that would allow you to collect more
Yes.
revenue? So I guess I'm questioning, I like the increase. I was wondering, are you being conservative on that increase, or is that pretty accurate?
Shirley, this is based upon Galen's numbers, correct? So this is what we actually went to the third-party vendor and said, here's, if we're staying on this track, you know, some part of it may be our inability to staff that second ambulance right now.
Well, it's an
So,
increase. I mean, clearly you didn't have that much staff in '24. Either
Yeah.
it's down from '24, where I thought it would be up from
Yeah.
an actual, because we added this revenue source.
Some of it is, when we made the transition to ECP, it took us a while to do so. So you're seeing a mismatch, maybe some of that should have been back in '23, but more got rolled out in '24, so that's why '24 is higher than what we're projecting now. Now we're with them month to month, so things are much better now.
because they worked, because there was a period of time between Barry City Fire, to Shirley's point, where that was the other vendor that was doing billing. So we had all of that unbilled revenue that ECP went and billed during that time. So a lot of that, like she's saying, was from that other.
Well, when I backed out the revenue, you're at a 5% increase, which is sort of my target, something 5 or a little slightly below. So I think you're doing a great job. I appreciate you leaning in. I saw some places where you requested more and you had to negotiate with the town manager. So I appreciate you leaning into the reality of having a new contract, taking care of our firefighters, and appreciate that put pressure on the budget that you answered quite adequately, I think.
Thank you for that. And I want to recognize the work of the staff. So all of these, this isn't necessarily my work. I kick this out to account managers. So I task all of our lieutenants or some of our senior firefighters and say, these are your budgets. You need to do this, and here's where you need to be at. And so they had to do their due diligence to get out there, talk to vendors, see where their projections are going to be, so.
Excellent.
Questions? Comments? Criticisms? All right, thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Very much.
I know we're
Parks?
behind, we need 2 minutes.
Yeah, let's take a 2-minute recess, and then we'll, Parks and Recreation. So I'm gonna officially declare us in recess, and I'm gonna do that by hitting the hammer. There. Next up, Parks and Recreation.
What did you want to start with?
Operating, I guess.
Operating? Okay, yeah. So I just handed out a sheet to you that I worked up to kind of go over the operating. If you look down in the bottom left-hand corner, this is the FY '26 budget. And you can see the line items are listed that were increased for a total of $45,298. And the next one over are the line items that decreased for a total of $17,835. New line item was added, vehicle fuel, but we moved some money from field maintenance and our park maintenance and other areas that would fill that. So the total, if you minus the increases and decreases, the total increase to the recreation and parks budget is $29,363. And then the third column over says same. Those line items remained the same. And then if you go back to the increases, you see the 3 line items in red. Across from them is the amount that the line item increased. But this year, we took the recreation line items and the park line items and combined them into one. So rather than 161 and 162, Recreation Parks is all 161. There was some administrative salaries in parks along with benefits, and the property insurance was in both areas. So taking those and combining those, you see that it was a large amount of 24,000, 8,000, and 4,000. So it looks like those line items went up even more, but it was taking the combination first of all. So the true increase to those three line items are in red under increases. And then on the bottom right, you see the removed line item was special events, which is about 16,500 for the July 4th Independence Day events, fireworks and parade and activities and such. So that was moved out. Eric could probably talk more about that, or has talked more about that.
Yeah, we
As to
can chat
that,
about
yeah.
that after Todd goes through his budget. I put into the select board budget and with the number attached to it up for discussion.
I think we should discuss moving it too, but we can get back to that when we talk about our budget.
Yep.
And one of the main reasons for moving it is there's, well, all departments are involved in the independence, from police, fire, public works, recreation, and such. So, yeah. But the salaries are still kept in all of our budgets to hire any staff that's needed to make sure this event goes off and everyone's safe and medical is provided and such. So those are the increases, the decreases, and the line items that stayed the same. The rest of this, I just wanted to point out that if you look at the top left-hand corner under recreation, program revenues of the day camps, contracted camps, recreation programs, contracted programs, and rec zone, those are all pay to play. So people are paying for those types of programs to be done. That revenue is $288,000. If you see the program expenses, the next column over, day camps and salaries, contracted camps, rec programs and salaries, contracted programs, and the rec zone, that expenses is $270,500 with a difference of $17,500. You move to the next column, those are our operating expenses that fall into program, but other things that within the department, training and conferences, advertising, office supplies, telephone, postage, computer apps, and fuel. That's a total of $16,670. So there's a difference of $830. So basically, what I'm hoping to show here is that with program revenues, people who are coming to our programs, paying for our programs, it's taking care of the program expenses and the operating expenses. And if you go to the last column on the far right, the recreation expenses is the administrative salaries at $158,913, and the benefits at $79,451, for a total of $364. You move down in that same area, down back to the bottom, paid for our expenses for the parks. We have the equipment rentals, the insurance, the utilities, the park equipment, park maintenance, and fuel. There's $39,655 there. So you have a total paid with taxes, $238,364, and the $39,655, for a total of $278,019. And if you move back over to the far left under parks, the field use fees have increased to $10,000, but that's also that paid to play. So we're taking that $30,000, we are taking in rentals. So it's people who are using our fields, renting our courts and such. And you can see I did a 3-year average, both in the revenue for programs, but also for the parks. And under the expense it says park maintenance, park maintenance, park maintenance, and then this year we had the field maintenance. And that is a line item that I'm watching, that I would never overspend what we take in. So we're saying we'll take in 30,000, but for some reason, if we have bad weather or we take in less, we lose a renter and we take in 25, then I'm only going to be spending upwards of 25, not the actual 30 on that. So that's the operating budget for recreation and parks in a nutshell. Again, the shaded area showing the increases, decreases, what stayed the same, what's added and taken out, but the rest kind of showing that half of our budget is program revenue and rental revenue, and the other half is taxes.
So right now, the rec zone is essentially being subsidized by your other programs to the tune of $28,000.
That's correct. I don't have a true number because I'd use a 3-year average on all of these, and the rec zone's only been in existence for a year, and we're still building programs there and such. And also, I was gonna say this to the end, but this, yeah, I don't have a copy for you, but this right here is our rec zone schedule right now, and I would say that half of these programs that you see here that are ongoing are senior related and are free of charge. So our senior Tai Chi, bone builders, senior strength, senior community meals, they're all free programs to the 50 plus citizens in Williston and beyond.
I think of the rec zone as a mini community center.
It's the show that's the direction the town probably should be moving in. We've got great numbers going on, and as well, programs that we put in there that people are paying for to come to, safe sitters, another yoga, therapy dogs, stacking rings, stargazing, weaving, cookie decorating, a story time with a library. Those, so we have some free programs, plus we have, and there's also on this list, driver's ed, table tennis. There's some programs that we got revenue coming in to help support that, but that's also, we have some programs that are free of charge, and it's a great space for meetings, coaches meetings, recreation parks committee meetings there. So I was gonna do this at the end, but I thank the select board for, again, renewing the lease for at least another year on the rec zone, because it's become a very popular place. And without that, we wouldn't be able to do these programs. These are during the daytime. We don't have that daytime space available to us. And these are ongoing, these are year round, which we don't have that luxury as well. So it does subsidize it, like you said, yes.
We'd be just adding a couple of zeros to that if it was a community center.
A few zeros, yes.
This might be probably a Shirley question instead of a policy question, but so what's going on with contracted programming? Like the expenses went way down and the revenue went way down?
It's because we put them into rec zone.
Okay.
Yeah, so contracted programs have lessened since COVID.
Huh.
So there was a few businesses and such that we were working with that are no longer in business, and after COVID, we needed to build those back up, and other businesses also were like, we're slowly rebuilding ourselves as well. So it was rebuilding the programs all over again. But also, those programs that went into contracted programs are now going into rec zone revenue. So if we hold a program at the rec zone, we'll actually show that revenue. So I conservatively 18,000, but the more programs that we can put in there, I'm hoping that number increases, is more than 18 this year. For next year, it increases as time goes on as well. And we'll have a more truer picture of what programs are going into the the rec zone, revenue-wise and expense-wise. And the biggest expense in the rec zone is the lease, which is 30,000 or so a year. So it's like 2,700 a month, 22 or 2,700 a month. I don't have that number exactly, but so that's the biggest expense of the rec zone. So
How many square feet is the rec zone?
it's about 2,000. We have it set up for an active space and a kind of a educational meeting space. It's all one, so we can't do things at the same time, but we also don't have to set things up and take things down to make it work. And we build in a half hour, so if the fitness program is in there from 10 to 11, we could have another program start at 11:30, so they're 15 minutes to get out and 15 minutes to get in to set up. But they don't have to set up all the tables and chairs. And we welcome, stop by anytime.
Do you have staff that are there
No.
all the time?
No.
I know it's been looked at for some items, but because of the acoustics in there, it's
Yep.
not satisfactory.
We've done some stuff on the ceiling with weaving felt, and we put some sound cushion things up around where we project onto the wall for with our projector and offering classes, and we put some other things up to help deaden that, and people have noticed a difference, but we still have a little ways to go. in
I
improving
haven't
that.
been in there for a while, but I went in there a couple of times earlier,
Yep,
you know, like with,
but we welcome you to visit now, because we
Alright.
keep changing it.
'cause I know they're always looking for space for, you know, theater and different, you know, like, you know, different things.
Yep, if we will rent it out too also, if we're not programming it already. But our goal is to program it 7 days a week.
I'm super impressed with your analysis. I was curious about that, like how much of the budget is taxpayer funded. That's interesting. You just answered my question without me even asking it, so. Is there, I was gonna ask, to clarify which parks, but I assume you have community parks, is what you're talking about.
Community parks, yep, so Village, Allenbrook, Brennan,
Rosnall.
and Rosnall
Yep.
are the four that we oversee.
Is there capital or anything we need to be looking at, equipment? What's next? Is there other part of this budget?
Yep, capital, yeah, you want to go there?
Capital?
Yes,
The capital, well, I guess we'll go, what do you have first, equipment or parks?
There's a park section. So
Parks, okay.
If you're in your capital budget, it starts on, first sheet's on page 49.
So Allenbrook Community Park is the first sheet. There's nothing slotted for 2026. There's a placeholding of 650,000, and that is to hopefully start developing Allenbrook Park in some way, shape, or form. A lot of different things going on with all that, but we talked with the manager and Eric, and we just felt that a placeholding of money that we're hoping to use in the future for the expansion of the park.
Yeah, we're in the thinking phase right now after we get the wetlands delineation. So, I'm hoping we'll have some answers and direction. There's a decision in FY26, kind of what the plan moving ahead is. So that's how we put those funds in the 27, not anticipating necessarily a huge construction project starting in 26 with anything right now.
This is impact fees?
There are impact fees.
The next one is the Recreation and Parks Master Plan. We did a RFQ for this in the hopes of starting something this fall. We only had one proposal come in. It came in over $100,000. So we have re-looking at what we're looking for and why we want to do this. Basically, a Recreation and Parks Master Plan will give us you know, 15 to 20 year outlook of the growth of the department and, you know, the community center, if that's a possibility, Allenbrook, how that should be built out, and any other land that becomes available, parks and the growth of the department and such like that. So a master plan helps that, rather than me sitting down and saying, hey, I think we need this, or we need that. And the town coming, community members coming and saying, we need this in our town, or we need that in our town. This community plan, similar to the, or this master plan, similar to the community center, ask the community what they wanted to see inside, or what they felt the town needed for inside, for the library and for also a rec center. This is asking the question, what do you want to see, you know, over the years for outside recreation? So, and putting the inside and the outside together will give us a master plan for the growth of not only the department, but the growth, when I say the growth of the department, I mean the growth of the department in the community of parks and indoor recreation facilities and such.
And we'll shape, Todd has the other sheet, the parks improvements sheet, where there's different elements to save for every year for our community parks. So that helps dictate that planning effort with community feedback for him and how we plan for that capital in the future. The other component is our recreation impact fee is set to sunset in 2025, so it needs to be renewed. Knowing what we're gonna build, we had a similar conversation with public safety, kind of that continuum of, okay, what's our plan on a capital standpoint, and how do we use that to go into levying our impact fee as that's updated. As a placeholder, we can continue the current impact fee for, you know, 6 months, a year, for doing this work, have this planning effort completed, and then we can work to update that impact fee based on that analysis. We'd have some help calculating that fee recommendation. And those flow through the planning commission first, and then come to you at the select board level.
I think it'd be interesting when we do the strategic plan, given the shift in the maybe demographics. I'm just thinking when we put this impact fee in place, I assume it's about the same time we built Allenbrook School, so 20 years ago, when we were looking at doubling the size of the Allenbrook School because it was going to have so many kids in town. So sort of the idea of what we needed strategically 20 years ago has shifted so dramatically with, you know, having so fewer kids and more of an aging demographic. It's like, it'd be really interesting to, what we need for parks and recreation, I think, is going to be dramatically different than what we thought about 20 years ago, so.
And then there's standards that get pulled into with, correct me how I'm not explaining this great, but Todd, you know this better than I do, just with, you know, access to parkland, kind of these ratios with population density of how close should some public parks be, kind of a best practice. And the town is also looking at with the Glazer project, as that project gets underway and the town's going to acquire a few acres on Mountain View Road. We don't foresee it as, you know, a large park with amenities, but certainly some features there. And what does that look like with maybe a, you know, a multi-use path with a pavilion, maybe some public art in there. We have those facilities coming up, and then as we look at some of our town planning goals with green spaces within the growth center, there's possibility for more, call them urban parks, and, you know, in a suburban area, but these smaller parks that don't have ball fields and large amenities in them, but, you know, picnic tables, some pause points, and thinking about if the town's going to get some irrevocable offers in the future for some of these more smaller parks, what does that look like with the town's official map goals as well? So it's a good point in time to kind of look at all that and plan for the future.
That seems like, to me, that seems like the big piece of the puzzle that's missing is what do you do for urban parks in that part of town, or urban green space at least. So.
Yep, absolutely.
We currently have community parks, and these other ones would be that too, but they're very sports oriented.
Right.
And that's an okay thing. And 20 years ago, like you said, that's probably what the town needed. But the town has changed and growing, and the town center is growing, and there needs to be green spaces in there, because green spaces are healthy places for people to go emotionally and mentally, just to recharge and that kind of thing, and sit quiet, you know, and maybe that's what the Glacier property becomes, is just an area to sit and relax and look at the views and recharge or whatever else. Or the urban one, the people that are living there, if it's all concrete, they're gonna feel very, you know, stiff, concrete-ish, so to speak. But if there's green space and there's flowers and grass and trees, then that's a place to go into nature. And
You do your Tai Chi there at least a couple
yeah,
months a year.
exactly. Outdoor
Well, I mean, it was
Tai
a
Chi.
little bit joking, but it's a
No.
beautiful inclusive park out in Burlington now, and
Yeah.
that's.
We're
That's
always reaching out to instructors about, hey, we got parks. You know, go to the parks. But our parks are very busy and loud.
Yeah.
You know, right now. So it needs to be that more quiet space to go off to and whatever else.
Yep.
So we've got a 80,000 because we figured that was more where we need to be. So we're going to propose this, put out probably an RFQ for qualifications and say, what can we get for 80,000 for an efficient park master plan? So instead of, you know, here's what we want and you're giving us a price, it's like, we'll give you a price, give us what you want, so we'll see what we can get the most of for that 80,000. And it will give, as Eric said, in the next two, so we'll move on to the parks improvement, and each year you put $20,000 into that automatically, and that builds up over time, and I spend a little bit of it for some improvements. You see that 2026, it's 110, and Eric, correct me if I'm wrong, it's 110 on 2026 above, but then it's 130. So the 110 is the ARPA money, and for the Village Community Park Pavilion. So that's why that's, and down below you see other 110, the ARPA. So that's why that's as large as it is this year or next year. And then you see 20,000 beyond that, and then 25. But if you go to the next page of the improvements, this is a list of stuff that we've added to the parks over the years using this capital, and as what we're envisioning. So this year, we're looking to put some top playgrounds, or amenities in the top playground, and there's also 10,000 for ADA doors, openers in the restrooms. But next year, that 110 is for the park pavilion. And we do have 10,000 there for a shelter and storage at Allenbrook, but that's kind of gonna be on hold depending on what the future of Allenbrook is. So that's why you're seeing not a $20,000 increase, but a $110,000 increase.
Yeah, and essentially I funded it for 110,000 just to use that ARPA priority project in there and pause that extra 20 that we put in from the operating budget for this year, seeing that that's a pretty large amenity to add, and this account carries a balance, so pausing that extra 20,000 for a year, given this is a large improvement, using another source of funds and trimming a little bit from the operating budget there was my strategy.
The pavilion would be about a 30 by 40 size. So it'd be a large one. It would be another space for groups to get in out of the rain quickly, or lightning situations. And it's also, it would be a source of revenue for renting out for picnics. And we always get that. You want a birthday party here, or this and that sort of a thing. And we plan on putting that right in front of, or the side of, the existing restrooms and such facing the large fields. And there will be an access path from the rec path to the pavilion. So it will be accessible for everybody and easy to maneuver, sort of thing. And then the last is the parks replacement. And again, you see 15,000, and each year you choose to put more, or put money into that account, it builds up. And in 26, we are slotted for some amenities to be replaced in the top playground as well. And the top playground is at Village Community Park. So that, over there, we're looking to add some new amenities, replace some old amenities. There's a space off to the left where we're gonna put a couple cornholes. We have a picnic table that we're gonna put over there. It's a 4 square, small one, and we're gonna put a checker chessboard on it so people can play. And then I hope to work with the library to have checkers and chess pieces that people could sign out, or the bags, the bean bags for the cornhole. And also provide that to the school because it's right near where the big playground is that they use, so that the school kids could use it as well as the community could use it. And there'll be 2 sets of cornhole, an adult size and then a youth size over there. So we're trying to add some things to the park that bring people in and have something to do other than just play sports and such. So that is all of those. That's the park schedule.
And I trimmed this a little bit, just given where we are in the budget this year. We typically fund it all out of operating transfers, so I trimmed it 10,000 and used 5 from operating, 5 from fund balance, and 5 from ARPA, just to keep a level that was up there a little bit still, seeing how we do need to replace things on a consistent basis, but trying to trim a little bit for 1 year, given that this account has a carry forward balance.
I assume you're keeping track somewhere in this book that I haven't gotten to about where we are with ARPA, with all the assumptions.
Right.
I don't remember seeing the 5,000.
Yeah, it's on the, in the capital budget. If you go to page 12, there's the, call it the summary. So it has everything that's funded for FY '26, and then you'll see the funding source. And then, so the bottom line, it's like a little over 300 for ARPA, and that includes the 100 and some priority projects that I slid into there. The picnic pavilion, and then the community forest improvements and the town trail management fund. 65 between those 2 lines that were on your priority list.
Those ones are familiar to me, but the other ones, I just want to make sure I knew where.
Yep.
Okay.
Capital equipment. The first one, tractors and mowers. The department has a tractor and has had 2 zero-turn mowers, Kubotas. Our 60-inch is used on all common areas, and the 72-inch is used only on the field. That way we're not cross-contaminating. We put money into the fields to take care of weeds and we put grass seed and stuff like that, so we don't want to
Page
contaminate it.
82 in capital.
The 60-inch mower, Kubota,
What page are we on?
Page 82 in capital.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
the 62-inch Kubota you don't see listed here. It was due for a trade come this next round, but so what I had listed here was a trade for a Kubota and a trade for a Mean Green Easy Turn, which is an electric turn. Currently, Public Works, or the Buildings and Grounds Department of Public Works, has one, and it put those 2 in there. I got a quote, and normally an electric goes for $35,000-ish. They were sale pricing it at 27. We could get 6,500 for a trade-in, and then the vendor called and said, I have one. We want to get rid of it. It's what you're looking for. I can cut that price down, and with a trade-in, we were able to get it for $14,500. And Melinda, the Energy Committee, thinks that we can get rebates as well, upwards of about $2,000.
Wow, smart shopper.
What's that?
Good deal.
2,500, we already got it. So the electric,
Fire trucks.
the electric mower, same, and again, the same model. And the reason why it was the same model is the flexibility of using the same charger and such. But we've got that for $12,000 now, which is probably about a third of the price if you you were to go and buy one outright. sort of
Amazing,
thing. So,
great.
That's why you see that mean green there now, and nothing other than that has changed. The next one is our pickup truck, which we just got after the accident of our previous one. So that's built over an 8-year life. And then the new one that's been added is the robot field liner. And just as an FYI, the robot field liner was purchased outright of about $30,000 with a grant from the Energy Committee. And the annual fee of about $1,700 is paid for out of the user fees who are renting the fields. So there's no tax dollars that have been used for this field liner. But we do need to build in a trade-in or for a 7-year life in the future of replacing the robot. But again, the annual fee will always come out of the users and the rentals that we get.
How do you like using that field liner?
It's the greatest thing in the world.
Kind of like a
So-
robo vacuum?
So, yeah, it's even better than that. But the nice thing about it is the setup. We can take a field, say we put it on, we have a pad, like an iPad. We say we put a field here. You know, it already comes sized and everything like that. If we want a smaller field, we pick a smaller field or whatever. We can change the size if need be. And then you have the robot liner just run the perimeter, not paint it, just run without paint it, so you can see kind of where it's all gonna land, and once you like it, you say paint it. And that's at tops a big field, 20 minutes, where it would have taken us over an hour to 2 hours to lay it out, straighten it, string it, line it, and be done with it. And then also, it makes amazing lines, and we found that the amount of paint that it puts down consistently allows us to paint less than every week. We're doing like every other week. And if I don't need a field for a month, I don't paint it. And I could just say, go out and paint that field, and it knows exactly where it was and paints it. So I don't have to keep painting something to keep it, because if we let it go for a month, we'd have to go out there and mark it, line it, straight it, string it, and do it all over again. And while I've actually painted a field, and while it's painting a field, I can mow another field and have it paint that field, and then I can mow. So it's like having a second person as well that's doing our line. So it's been a great addition and to the department, and very beneficial.
I would think you could use something like that to also paint lines in a parking lot, whether it's asphalt or grass.
Yeah, it's
Different type of paint.
not set for that. It's set for grass and turf. It's a whole different beast.
We could,
And paint and stuff like that as well.
it'd work on grass though if it had the program.
Oh, yeah. We were able to do a maze on the grass for one of our events that kids could go through and stuff like that, so.
That's fun.
Yeah, but if we had to do parking spaces and lines, we probably could.
So is that something that you have the ability to program it for a maze like that on the grass?
It comes with a template that we can choose. That's a maze, yep. So it has a variety of different templates that you can choose from fields and different things.
Pretty cool to look at it from a drone up above after.
Yeah. And we're going to, we took some videos, and we're going to name the robot, and put a name on it. So we're gonna have, something out to the community, educating them what it is, that people have seen it, but you'll see it on Facebook and other places that we're gonna have a little naming of it, name the robot.
I thought it was named Tiny Mobile Robot.
That's right. And the company's been great to work with. Their support is great, and They actually, the rep came out at the end of our season to make sure that it was still working properly, cleaned, showed us how to winterize it and stuff like that, so they've been really great to work with as well. And that's all I have for Recreation and Parks.
Want to talk about 4th of July while Todd's here?
What's that?
We want to talk about 4th of July while Todd's here?
Yeah.
If you go to page 70 of your operating budget, there's a breakdown there. So I put this up for discussion. This has always lived in Recreation and Parks, and it's a community-wide celebration that pulls in a lot of different departments. I think it's the largest event the town puts on every year. So as I was looking for potential expense items for discussion, typically, and I think this number might have been a little bit lower. I'll have Todd speak to that. But to give you an idea what it costs to put on this event, it's over $20,000 a year, and this doesn't include the staff time as well. And one thing we needed to do the last couple of years was hire Green Mountain Security due to it's popular, which is a good thing, but we can't have enough, merely get enough police officers to all work on that day for the amount of support we need for both the parade and then the afternoon and especially the evening event. So we've had to have a contract there. So I've, as you discuss where you want to land on this budget, one of the questions is, do you want to fund this event completely out of taxes? Or what other communities do is they look to have kind of a committee with a fundraising and sponsorship component as well. So I put it in with $10,000 to start the discussion, certainly up to the board, what you want to fund, where this lives in your budget, what's the scope. But to give you an idea, the fireworks generally run for the 20-minute show, $13,000 to $15,000. People like it. I'm not against fireworks at all. It's just it's an expense just to think about.
So the $10,000 would go to pay for what?
But we put it towards the event overall, so that's it's kind of evolving our thinking on this. We also would need to put a contract in with the fireworks here with a deposit down, usually in January, to kind of hold our spot. So it's I can see, and I'll let Todd operationally, the parade itself, there's not a lot of expense to the parade besides staff time and things of that nature. So I'm not say that would always run. But as we talk about events on the green after, kind of what the evening looks like, what those components are, there's definitely a cost to that depending on the scope of it.
So essentially, we'd be gambling that we could raise the rest of the money, or we wouldn't have it at all.
Or a pared down version of it.
Last time we had a proposal like this was in 2008, and one of our members of the board had proposed to eliminate the fireworks entirely that year.
It was me.
Yeah,
I like that you didn't throw him under the bus.
a person to be unnamed. I think the town needs something like this for 4th of July. So 10 grand is a good starting place, and we can continue to talk about this later on.
If we only dedicated 10,000 and we couldn't raise the money, and I want to talk about how and the effort that would be involved in that too, but if we couldn't raise the money, then can we change our minds and find the money somewhere else in the budget?
Potentially,
Because-
yes, yeah.
Reserve
And it's
fund, I
starting a
suppose.
new event, hits early in the new fiscal year as well. I mean, we could talk about reallocation, or we could, we might have a good sense that, hey, we know our revenue projections at the end of 25 came in with more, so the board's gonna allocate 10,000 from the fund balance to cover that shortfall or something like that.
I feel like with a extremely tight budget this year, and in response to kind of community feedback from the budget from last year, I think that this is the way we need to go. I would like to see community members get involved. This is a time-honored community tradition, but I feel like this is a way to get folks involved. I mean, we have a lot of volunteer positions open right now, so I worry that we're just not seeing the level of engagement that it would take to get people to raise this funding. But I'm hopeful that people will want to support this community tradition and that we can raise the money in that way. I think this is a reality of our budget this year.
I mean, it's the reality of our budget, but we're adding an HR director and taking away fireworks. It's a bad optics. And I think a lot of times, I think I've told you this last year, my father was a public works director, and he knew exactly what to cut when his budget got cut. It was the things that people didn't want to give up, and were really in their face. And so I have a problem with using it as community blackmail. I am softer to the fact that in other communities, there is fundraising to support it.
I mean, I would certainly hope that it wouldn't be construed that way. I think that, you know, I think that, you know, last year you did have some people sponsoring, you know, on the green and things like that, and I think that you've built the capacity to set this model for the fundraising and support in that way. So, yeah.
So the $23,000 is what's the budget? Is that looking at that right? Fireworks, security, awards, supplies, shuttle, bordelets, all that kind of stuff, right? Page 70.
Yeah, that's a general estimate, and Todd, with the fireworks number, was that a little bit lower? I put it at 15 here.
Yeah, so,
Conversations, but-
the fireworks are 13,000, and the fireworks company has a basis of a minimum that you can, you know, like, we could come in and say we want a $5,000 show, and they won't do that for us on the 4th of July.
Right.
There's a minimum, because they have to hire the staff and everything
Yeah.
else. It's a very busy time for them. A lot of, you know, they can only do so many, and they have other towns that want it on the 4th as well. So, yeah, so the number is 13 for that. When I came to the town of Williston, we had the parade, the after, on the Village Green activities, and then the fireworks at night. We've grown that to be food vendors and activities at Village Community Park with following the fireworks, which has brought in a great number of people and more than, I think more than just having fireworks. And there's a lot of communities around us that have fireworks. Burlington on the 3rd typically, and other ones on the 4th around us. So having some other activities going on and food vendors has brought more people to us in doing that. We're of course not asking them for any money or taking any revenue from them. I figured the parade costs us, you know, a couple $100 in ribbons, and we got the security. I hire some staff for the lineup and such. The Cross Point Church does a sponsorship of the activities on the green, which could be, I've reached out to them to get those numbers, but I'm probably around 12 to 1,500, and they're doing the same thing in the evening, so they're giving a sponsorship of about 3,000 I'm figuring on, but I haven't heard from them directly on that. And then we have some vendors, the Boy Scouts and whatever else, but they're raising money for themselves, so we don't charge them anything for that. So you have the parade piece, and then you have the green afterwards automatically. Those could stand alone, and then in the evening, we have the food vendors and more activities and the fireworks. We have trash, which Myers has been a sponsor and provided trash bins for us. We have portalettes. The evenings we've had tents. So that's that 16.5 you have seen in our previous budget. We're spending, depending on the fireworks, we're spending about 15 to 16.5 for all those different things that I've said. And so that's our piece. The other is if we lose Cross Point Church, if we lose the trash bin, if we lose those spots. Oh, we also got $1,000 from Davis Realty that we've put it towards entertainment. So if we lose those, that's where that other amount that Eric has come up with, about that 23. And then all of our departments, again, have some salaries because we're hiring that piece out. So that's kind of where that's all fallen. The idea is more places like Cross Point and Myers and donations like Davis happens. And, you know, is there the possibility of a committee of community members, but also businesses in town getting together to raise this. I know, I don't think it's happening anymore, but I know the last few years in Heinsberg, there was, little jars to help support our, so when you go and buy something, you're throwing $1. So it's kind of like a tip jar, but they're putting that towards it. So there's a lot of different ways of maybe having this event and not using tax dollars to do it, because so many people come from Williston and outside of Williston, but people do need to get involved. And this is a tough time because fireworks companies are looking for commitments now for the next fiscal year. July 4th falls into the next one. So it does fall on, but if we know now that we want to move towards something, we can get that going now, keep it going, build it, but maybe the first year we need to support it somehow, or make sure that if we don't, as Ted said, is there money if we don't reach our goal type of thing. So there's all those different options to look at, rather than saying, hey, tax dollars are used for this. And it wasn't, when I went to Eric, it wasn't about, we're gonna pull this out. It was more, there's multiple departments, not just the rec department, that's part of this event. And we saw that because Eric held a meeting of all the departments that were involved, and my eyes opened up. It's like everybody's got a role in this, and maybe the community, the business community, whatever else, the citizens need to have a role in this too, and be a community event from the beginning, from raising dollars and from the beginning.
Do you envision a committee that would stand up, would fall under still recreation and parks, or?
I would see that, I would like to see that it's a select board committee, like our recreation and parks committee is. But yeah, I play a role in that. And the fire chief comes in and talks about life safety, and the police chief comes in and talks about, managing, and public works comes in and talks about what they can do and what their needs are. So, I can take the role of being the public, or being the town employee of the committee. I don't have a problem with that, but it's gonna encompass all departments, and I think it would be great to encompass the community of Williston, and that means the citizens, the businesses, and even those that, businesses, they don't live here, but they have businesses here. That's kind of my take.
So I put this in there for discussion as part of your process, and it might be a decision you make and say, oh, it's a good model, but let's put it out a year or two as well.
Okay.
So,
I like what Tim has to say, to grow this, it takes money to grow it, and as you grow it, it raises more money. Sponsorships and businesses being involved.
And if it's set up where, the money is rolling over, then you have that blanket to be there. And we did it last year, we were with the fireworks. If I can commit, I have to pay 50% and give them that date. But if we pay a full price, we get 10% more fireworks. And 10% out of 13,000 is a good amount of fireworks. And I had asked them last year, my 10%, I want to see some smiley faces and some other things going on. And they can do those things, and people were oohing and ahhing. But those are the luxury things that we can do if we have the right group out there raising those funds.
Well, we have a lot of talented folks in this town who, maybe don't have the capacity to volunteer on other committees in other ways, but this might be right in their wheelhouse, and, you may have some visionary ideas how to make the 4th of July even better.
So we're getting a little behind, significantly behind schedule, actually. So are there any final questions or comments for Todd? No? Okay, great.
Thank you. Thank you, Todd.
Ted's getting hungry.
No.
Skip Public Works. That's all.
Yeah. We're behind, so we're gonna skip.
Snowplow, salting.
Say yes and I'll leave.
The floor is yours.
So, hopefully we won't take very long because there's not a lot of big changes in the Public Works operating budget. Our biggest change has to do with, staff and payroll and benefits. I will go through, though, and just show a couple places where we have changed a few things. The dollar amount hasn't really changed, but some things have been split up. In the proposed 26 budget, we've got $15,000 in Old Brick Church and schoolhouse maintenance, 15 in town hall maintenance, and 15 in annex maintenance. We had combined those previously, but now we're splitting those all back out just to make it easier for tracking the work that's actually happening in on those different facilities. Once again, the dollar amount hasn't changed from 25, it's just the way it's presented in this budget.
So this isn't randomly dividing electrical bills or whatever, this is actually, this is the maintenance we did in that building, it should be attached to the building.
Right. Excuse me. The next big change, actually, is computer equipment.
Sorry, next, what page are you on?
I don't have pages.
136.
136.
Yeah, the summary's on.
Sorry about that.
No, it's okay.
I'm just looking at the summary of the budget right now.
Yep, go
But
ahead.
even my sheets don't have page numbers on them. So anyway, that happens to me a lot.
I gave you the version before we put all the page
It's
numbers.
fine.
It's not your fault.
I think
It's
that's
not your
on
fault.
purpose. No. So anyway, computer equipment, line item that's up, and that's because we have to upgrade our computers because of the Windows 11 and the operating systems that are being used now are going to be obsolete by October of 2025. Something that I'll admit we get behind a little bit on because we hate changing computers because we're always told, oh, don't worry about it, we'll be able to move everything will be fine, and that's not the case. But it's finally caught up to us, so that item's up a little bit there.
Did you say, is that just computer hardware, or did you say it's because of this? What kind of programming?
It's Windows 11.
Pardon?
Windows 11.
Oh,
Yeah, the hardware.
So,
time for nothing.
plus we do run some, we're running GIS, those kind of programs too, so our computers are a little bit larger, be able to handle those kind of systems. The next significant change is actually down a little bit, and I just wanted to point that out, and that's road maintenance. And you would say, well, how can road maintenance go down? Well, some of that's because of the grants we get through stormwater to do a lot of work now on gravel roads and stuff that we used to charge toward road maintenance. So we're able to bring that one down a little bit. The largest increase is probably in this whole budget, money-wise, is in retreatment, paving. We're asking again for the $10,000 that we ask for every year to try to keep up on that with cost changes. This year, actually, we weren't too bad that way. And same way with salt this year, price-wise. Prices didn't change that much, but we never know, and we certainly don't know what's going to happen with paving numbers coming into the new year. Let's see.
Sand and salt, is that fixed on the roads? Do you have to purchase that ahead of time, or is that something that you purchase as the year goes based upon the weather?
Oh, no. We buy it as much as we can up front.
So
The reason you'll see that number fluctuating back and forth there is strictly because of that reason, the weather and what kind of winter we've done. So the salt that's in the shed is there for the next season, and we just have the number and we add it to the next. But yeah, we don't want to mess with the salt number because we just never know what's going to happen. So for those that don't remember, years ago, there was a salt shortage. And it was a real problem. I wasn't here, I was in the neighboring town, but I dealt with this town, helping out trying to find salt. Luckily, we did, out of Canada. And between myself and Neil, who was in this chair, I found the salt, he found a person to go get it. So when we rebuilt our facility, our salt shed is large enough now that we can put about 2/3 of our winter salt up. So that, and then as we pull out, we'll add a little bit more back to it. So that if that ever happens again, hopefully we'll be okay. So we have, before we started this winter, which obviously has happened, we had 1,100 tons on the ground. We'll use anywhere from 1,100 to 1,400 tons a year, depending on the year. Quite honestly, the snow event today is better for us. It's less salt. It's when we get these little things overnight that are the killers. And, you know, I even said to the guys already, and it's only been a week or two, if that winter keeps going the way it was, we're gonna be in trouble. Because everybody wants clear roads. We don't have a clear roads policy, we don't shoot for that, but believe me, if we don't, we hear about. So, anyway. So yeah, that's why the salt number stays constant, Mike. We try not to mess with that one. Otherwise, we'd be messing with that every year. What's gonna be this year? It's just a guessing game, so let's just
Yeah,
keep.
I assumed it was.
And we actually, which I'm gonna go back in a little bit and go over, some needs, that we're looking at from a service side of it. We're actually doing pretty good when you think that we've added roads and we haven't changed our salt number. Which means we're trying to spread our salt budget out farther. Use less salts on the road, which we have to do anyway because of environmental reasons, but. Okay, so the paving number, highway line striping, down $5,000. Another place where we could reduce a little bit of money because of that grant we got this year from the state for $35,000 for all the white line paving that we did. Not center line paving, but white line paving. We were finally successful in getting it all done with the exception of Maple Tree Place Road, which for some reason last time they came, which was probably the last day they could do it, they didn't bring yellow paint with them. So, anyway, just in case anybody ever hears anything about that, that's what's going on there. We put 20,000 back in pedestrian path paving. We had taken that out for a while as a way to help with the budget in previous years, but we have sections of path out there now that do need to have an overlay done, and we just can't keep putting that off. So that's a 20,000 add. Landscaping's down a little bit. Some of that's from getting grants. Actually, I've got a grant written right now. I'm just waiting for a letter, but I won't mention any names.
Person will have to get on this.
What's that?
Yeah, I'll have to talk to that person.
I just need a letter from Eric saying he's okay with it going after the grant, but it's for 100 trees. And that's not all in replacement of ash trees, that's actually additional trees. 17 of them will go toward an ash tree replacement if we get the grant. But the rest of them will be for enhancements in the parks, near Maple Tree Place, the affordable housing, up Whitney Hill Road toward the senior housing, and Blair Park around that senior housing projects where there's some room for some trees. So if we're successful, we'll get a bunch of trees, including putting, I forget the exact number right now, but like 12 or maybe more sugar maples in the park with the thought process, and I got a letter from the school that as they mature, they could actually be used as an educational component for the schools. Some of that was to help enhance us getting a grant, but still,
Hey,
it's still, I mean.
whatever works.
Right, I just thought, we have a lot of space over there, why not? Let's get some sugar maples in there once they mature. What a better way for the kids to learn about one of Vermont's biggest economic drivers, really. So,
With the
anyway.
ash tree replacement, is that for ash trees on town property, or do we
Oh, yeah.
place them I know we just took a whole bunch down in Brennan Woods, is that their responsibility to replace them? The HOAs, right?
We actually replaced, Brennan Woods is done
Oh, okay.
from our side. But the answer is yes, everything's been in the right-of-way, no private trees.
Okay.
So there are still plenty of ash trees out there that don't belong to the town of Williston.
I see.
But we have never gone after a grant to go after the private trees, only because we've had to go after our own for so much.
Yeah. No, I was forgetting about the fact that they're in the right of way. I know.
Yeah, we just did 100 trees in Brennan Woods.
Yeah.
Or almost 100 trees, so,
So what's the sidewalk line for then? If the other sidewalk, if there's pedestrian path paving and you have a sidewalk line, is that just?
the sidewalk line is not the path paving. Sidewalk, that line is just when we have to replace a couple slabs here or there, or those kind of things, maintenance kind of items. And that $5,000 probably gets us 2 or 3 slabs anymore, but, you know, it is what it is with trying to keep doing things, but still keep in mind what everybody wants to see out of the budget, increase-wise. So that's the operating budget. Certainly able to answer any questions if there are any.
Questions?
Nope.
Okay.
Out of everything on your budget, is that all in-house, or is a lot of that, you have to vendor that out, like the sidewalk replacement?
We will do the removal of those kind of things, but as far as putting the sidewalk back in, we hire that out. Retreatment is obviously all done by bid every year for paving. It's always one of the big companies. But other than that, tree planting, we will remove trees, but we usually hire the planting of the trees out. Unless it's an individual tree here or there, then we might put it in the ground. But no, this budget is set up for mostly us doing the work.
I see you guys working hard on culverts and sides of the road and everything.
We are working hard on culverts, and thankfully, some of that's because of the stormwater program and because of some of that grant stuff I was alluding to a little earlier, that stormwater gets that necessarily doesn't come to highway, but we get highway to do the work, and then we get some of that back. Now, when it comes to lining, we've been doing a lot of lining of larger culverts. That's all contracted work, because that's a steamed liner that's put in there and everything else to try to keep the life. You're gonna see one south of the farm. The next, well, it was supposed to be Friday. Luckily, they canceled. But we have a big one down there that rather than try to tear up Oak Hill Road, we're gonna line the culvert. Once they get so deep, Mike, we don't do them. We don't have the proper equipment. We could probably pull it off, but it would take too long.
You only got your department is only so big, you can't
Right.
do everything. What
Right.
about the one on Tower Lane, under Route 2?
Tower Lane? No, you mean on,
There-
yeah, Talcott Road?
I'm thinking Tower Lane down the road. There's a culvert down there that's been partially plugged.
You'll have to tell me where that is. I don't know what you're talking about.
I'd have to go take a look at it again, or go take a look at it.
Tower Lane, the dead-end road where the tower used to be?
Yes,
That's news to me, but let me know about it and we'll go take a look at it.
yeah, I've been told by people that live down that way that,
We hear a lot of things from people on Tower Lane, Mike, just so you know, I'm not trying to say anything bad, but just to give you an idea.
thank you.
Yep.
And road, sidewalks, and bridges? Is that next?
Sure, whatever people would like. Road, sidewalk, and bridges is fine with
Just
me.
trying to find the right page.
Yep.
Capital.
Or buildings, or where's next?
Buildings is probably the first section, so there.
What page?
Page 27.
Thank you. Oh, I like page 27, 0.
So I should, as you look at the buildings this year, I did some work to change the format some, to kind of break it out by building as well. And part of this is planning for future energy efficiency needs as well. we're in the process of getting an estimate to see what it would cost on a per building basis to change the heat pump technology over time. I knew it wasn't something to build in the budget this year, but that'll help us plan for the future and think about other grant opportunities. So in the buildings capital, trying to break it out by building, to just, it was lumped a little more together, so just trying to separate that a bit here. So that's why Public Works building is on its own.
Yeah, I mean, since Eric has brought that up, I don't normally go over ones we don't actually have money in for the year. With what Eric was just talking about, some of these have been added just to be placeholders so that we don't forget what may be coming down the road. And the first one was the Public Works building HVAC. The next one in my book, hopefully they're following the pages, is the old schoolhouse. Nothing in there for this year. The next one is the fire protection for the old brick church. Once again, nothing in there to go against this budget. The trustees asked to have a capital put in for the accessibility, since they had a study done about handicap accessibility for the church. So we put that in. No money in that for this year, but the sheet's still in there.
That's the 65,000?
Yes, sir. But underneath the management approved, there's nothing, so it's not in the budget. Building contingency fund is the next one. This one actually is pretty crucial, so it's good that we are funding it. Some of the money right now for the police station's repair of their generator is coming out of this fund. Turned out that at the inspections this year, there was a problem with that generator leaking very bad. So it wasn't something we could repair. The generator had to be torn down for the repair to be made, which was done yesterday. Even asked the guys while they're out there if they could find a colder day to work in. But, anyway, that was taken care of, and some of the funds, if not all, are just coming out of this building contingency fund because it was an unexpected expense. The next one, Town Hall building, HVAC, starting to build some money there. So this was for both, more than just the HVAC, but the HVAC has been added, but 1,500's in that budget. That's for the building we're sitting in. Town Hall building annex is the next one for 1,500, the same kind of thing. And that's the buildings in general.
So the 1,500, the two 1,500s just for cameras? Is that how many?
Yeah, I put it for the security camera syncing account and waiting on some updated HVAC numbers for heat pumps. So that'll be in next year's. But I think our boilers, Bruce, our boilers are not up anytime soon in these two buildings.
No, everything in the Town Hall and Town Hall Annex has been replaced in the last 12 to 14 years. So they're not old by any means, but certainly the technology has changed now with heat pumps and everything else. So if you did nothing, they'd probably be good for another 6 or 7 years anyway, just longevity or life cycle cost.
So we're starting to think about when that replacement comes, what our approach is going to be.
When we did the boiler in this building, we went to the most modern at that point. So if you walked into the equipment room downstairs, you would see the boiler is only about this big compared to what boilers used to be. So, anyway.
I like the new format. I like having a page for each building. I think it's easier for me to understand.
This building here, for example, is all hot air, or is there some hot water as well?
No, it's hot water. See the baseboard heat? That's AC and just fresh air type of stuff you're seeing in the roof.
Going to heat pump technology is different with hot water than hot air, isn't it?
That's why we're asking for numbers, Mike, to find out whether I honestly can't answer that question for you. I mean, you can get an on-demand hot water system, and actually that boiler we have in this building was that way, but it wasn't producing the hot water fast enough, so we ended up with a little hot water tank down there, but a very small one, just so that initially they get hot water faster. But Yeah, I don't know the answer. That's why what Eric has said, we reached out to the vendor that helps us with most of this and asked them if they could put together some numbers for us to get an idea of what we're looking at.
Yeah. When we get those, we didn't have them in time for this draft to go out, but imagine we'll have them before the end of the budget process, so we can update the board on what that looks like.
Every time I contact him, he says he's extremely busy, and, you know, he's like, well, you said you could do it. Come on. But anyway, we'll get them.
Thank you.
All right?
Yep.
Next, whatever your equipment or,
The roads, sidewalks, and bridges. We made a couple format changes here as well. Get a lot of questions about future path projects coming down that are planned in town. So this, we've gotten great grant funding for that, so it's been funded, and we use what's remaining for some sidewalk bond proceeds for the match. But we didn't have that in the capital plan, so community members, I'll get questions, you know, what's the plan for next sidewalk or path you're going to do? So this in many ways is putting that in the capital plan so people have a reference point and keeps the board updated on where those projects are.
and I'm going to talk a little bit more about one or two of those as we get there. The first one, though, is minor transportation improvements. This is actually a pretty important one, because you can see the different kind of projects that we've taken money out of for this. So when things come in, you know, a lot of times it's great to get grants and everything, but a lot of times you don't get the grants and you got to get something done. So this is basically what that is for.
What's an RRFB at Old Stage in North Williston Road?
Rectangular rapid flash beacons.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
My road.
You're not up on all those abbreviations, man?
Everything not quite
We
right.
need a little glossary.
Yeah.
The next one is sidewalk and path projects in process. This is one of the ones Eric was just talking about, and just showing, you know, I have provided you guys with a list or a breakdown of this previously, but this is just showing so that it's in the budget, people can see it. The next one, we almost ought to change the name. Circ all projects. Maybe to no all projects, but anyway, what we've done this year, and I forgot to check with Christine because I had her working on this, was with the grants that come out, I said, you know what? To get funding, these projects have to be on the tip. These projects are all on the tip. They're all on the tip saying federal and state money only, no local match. So I asked her to look into, if we apply for that grant, can we get the grant? All the grants have local matches. Can we apply for the grant and get the grant based on what the language is in the tip? And I don't know that we've gotten an answer for that yet, but I will certainly let you know. Because as far as I'm concerned, they're in the tip. We've followed that rule. The funding mechanism is in the tip. It just doesn't have any local match from us. So, and the grant that we're going after all comes from the same place. But we'll see how that logic, if there is any there, plays out. So,
It's a good question to ask them.
yeah. And that's actually it, and under that one.
How's the pedestrian bridge over off Industrial Avenue coming along?
Not done yet? We approved money like 2 weeks ago.
Eric and I had a discussion about this just yesterday. We've gotten a proposal. Right now, the proposal is under the numbers that we have been approved for, but just barely. So I'm still going back to the contractor. There's one or two places in there where we think we might be able to shave a few dollars off of to get it done. But it's very much in the process. The provider of the bridge knows about it. The contractor's on board. So their proposal they gave me said August. I went back to them and said, well, wait a minute, the reason I was even able to get this money under emergency measures was that we could get it done faster. They've committed to the fact that when the bridge comes in, they will do it. So if we get the bridge in May or June, they'll go in and work on it. But it's 12 weeks just for submittals, just to go back and forth saying, yes, this is the right thing, not the right thing, and then the fabrication of the bridge after that. So we only have so much control, but it's very much in the process.
Doesn't Bruce have a few vehicles?
Yeah, the next section's equipment fund,
Oh.
yeah. Page 75. The largest part of Public Works capital.
I knew there was a truck or two involved.
All by hand.
Okay, equipment fund. It is the largest, but, so the first one is large highway truck rotational. That's keeping our trucks turned around every 7 years, which now, I think I've talked to you before about, actually looks like almost 8 years or 8.5 years, even though we order the truck. It's taken us over a year to get a truck that's coming in January. So that was out of the '24 budget, which means, just so you know, that when the budget gets approved in March, as soon as it's approved, we put out a bid. So we're over a year and a half waiting to get that truck. It's coming in January, we're told, but then we still don't get it because that means it goes over to Viking where it gets the bodies put on and the plow equipment and everything else. We may see it for the last couple snowstorms this year. And we have 2 other trucks out there that are on order. We haven't heard about when they're being built yet. So just to let you know, if anybody thinks, 7 years, we really need to keep this 7-year time frame going. It gets us the most money for our trucks and gives the guys good equipment to be working with. So there's $185,000.
Shirley, what happens when we don't get a truck in the fiscal year that we budgeted for?
Capital's still been approved, so whenever the purchase order goes through and we pay for it that year.
So the money in the operating budget goes to the capital fund and there it can sit until we get the thing.
Yep.
Got it.
Yeah, don't take capital money, man. So,
And the price of these trucks has gone up, especially the last 3 years or so. I think we used to put away maybe 140, 145 a year, so this has been adjusted.
we used to get the whole damn things for 60.
Yeah,
But,
we did have to purchase 2 trucks, the last year's budget, and we used a bunch of ARPA money to help us because of the inflationary factor for now 2 trucks, what we were facing.
and we did have that built in the budget as we went along, but just because of the increases, they were going up faster than we were putting money aside. And we're gonna talk about that a little bit more when I get done here. I have a little talk to have with you quickly. I know you're running behind. I wanna get out of here myself. So anyway, large
Not
highway,
before it snows anymore.
I'm sorry?
You gotta get out of here before it snows anymore. You can't trust the roads in this town.
I actually thought the roads looked pretty good.
They're excellent, I would say. I had to drive into Shelburne the other day, a couple days ago. Driving in from Shelburne, the roads were just a mess. And you got to
Really?
Williston, they were beautiful, so I appreciate that.
Oh, good. We've actually been working on that a little bit, but we get a lot of help from the police department as well, so, anyway, and then these quick storms come and things. So, large highway equipment is the next one. It's exactly what it's for, replacement of our larger equipment that you can see all listed there. Trackless sidewalk plow, that's to replace the one that we have now. Just coming to the end of its life. So, yeah, anyway, that's what that whole, and there's $70,000 in there for, and we do a spreadsheet every year and try to figure out, so that we make sure that we're trying to keep enough money in there after we purchase something that we're not coming back asking for a huge increase the next year again. Highway pickup replacement. I mean, believe it or not, it's even taken us forever to get pickup trucks. Water and Sewer has one right now that was approved. And we ordered it, I can't remember how long ago now, and we're just starting to see that. So the turnaround of things was really slowed down. So there's $10,000 in there for the highway pickup replacements. That includes the buildings and grounds pickup that you've been seeing drive around here in circles for a little while right now. Buildings and facilities mower, just what it is. It's a tractor and a zero-turn mower that we have. And that's just to put money in there to make those replacements. Signal replacements, a place where we gotta keep putting money. This is another one that's getting extremely hard to have somebody come in and do work on, since there's really only one contractor for the whole state of Vermont. Now, ECI is getting into that business, so maybe that'll help lighten that up a little bit, but it is important to keep that money in there.
Do we own the ones on 2A? Is that,
Nothing on 2A or 2 belong to the town of Williston. Our only lights we own are all down Marshall Ave, not including the 2A one.
right,
We own 4 we've owned 4 signalized intersections right now. Winter parking ban system, nothing in that anyway, that's just a pipe dream. Line and pavement marking machine, just what it is, to just put money aside so that we can replace that, which I think has been very successful. We've been able to keep the stop bars, turn lanes, arrows, those kind of things up to par. I think it's much better. It's also much better now that we have the white lines, edge lines, on a lot of roads that we actually don't even really have to have them on. But with the new driving technologies, a lot of the cars are using those lines. That's how you get self-driving cars and those kind of things.
it's almost a public safety exposure, because if you have that on and you're used to it, and then you get to a section with no lines, your car gets lost. And so it's,
Yeah, even my wife's car, you go over the center line a little bit, or you can get close to it, and it's letting you know, it's, go away, man. I got it under control, but anyway.
exactly.
I already got one driver with me that I don't need, so no. Anyway, so,
Which one?
that's that budget in a nutshell.
Remember, it's being recorded.
That's right, that's right.
Questions for Bruce? Anyone? You said there was something else?
Now, if I could, I'll do this as quickly as I can. I put together a spreadsheet. Eric has seen this, but he hasn't seen the final copy that I have in front of me here yet. But it's just to give you guys an idea of where we're at Public Works-wise. You hear from everybody, we need this, we need this, we need this. These are true numbers and the facts. And the last truck we put on in Public Works, which meant another person, was in 2017. Since then, we've taken on 4.4 miles that we've actually taken over the town of Williston. There's a project out there right now that's going to add almost another mile of road that's actually in actual construction. There's 4 projects out there that aren't even in construction yet, but will certainly get built, that are going to add 2 more miles of road. So we end up with a total of 7.425 miles once those are all done. But when a project is being built, we'll start plowing the roads with a winter maintenance agreement. So right now, we're doing 5.34 miles of additional road since we added a truck and a person. We try to keep the routes at 4 hours, which is about 8 miles of road. So, I'm just giving you the heads up. Not this year, didn't come in and ask for it, but we're certainly going to be next year trying to put in the capital for another truck. And at the end of that 6-year period, if not before. And this is just on what the town has approved to be built. It's not what Public Works, this is what's happening. So just to give you all a heads up on that. That goes along with the Water and Sewer Department. We haven't added a person there since 2013. So just imagine what's been built since 2013. Finney Crossing as one of the ideas. We took on the Meadow Ridge development. So it's not just reading meters, it's taking care of all that infrastructure and the sewer as well, and the pump stations. So that's another place where we should be looking at an additional person. And that one should actually happen probably sooner than the highway one. Stormwater coordinator that in 2014, that's all gone good, although she has an awful lot of work. Most of the field work is done by highway, so that's additional work that's been added onto the highway since we've taken over all that stuff. So just a real quick in summary then, Williston maintains more infrastructure per highway employee than 4 towns of comparison. I sent out a comparison of the different towns, got some numbers. Their average miles around 7.82 per employee. We're at 9.9 miles per employee. So you're getting your money's worth, but it's also getting to the point where you're not going to get your money's worth just because of not being able to keep up with it. Let's see.
This plowing you're talking about, Bruce?
This isn't just, that is what we're talking about plowing wise, but that whole number was just miles of road and then what each, mile of road taken to town's employees and dividing into that. Once again, we try to keep plow routes at 8-9 miles, just because that's 16 miles, or in some cases 24 miles if it's a multi-lane road or things like that. So, so yeah, once again, this is just 2. And then the other thing that is the buildings and grounds employees. We're at 3 right now, but we're always trying to build that. We would like to take over doing the cemeteries. Eric and I have talked about this in the past. We've looked at that and decided that's probably the number 5 before we can do that. So that's a couple more employees there. So anyway, you all know Williston is still one of the fastest growing communities in Chittenden County. Public Works continues to take on more responsibilities. And the final plug for Public Works is we are the only department that everybody in their life deals with every day of their life. If we don't do it, the other ones aren't going to get it done. So, just as an example, this is a great idea to do this all in one day. Sorry, it's running over for you, but it actually costs us more money. I would not have had somebody here today clearing sidewalks and plowing parking lot and stuff if not for this meeting. So all those little things actually cost us money. Green Up Day cost us money, not just the other departments, it costs Public Works money. The 4th of July parade doesn't cost us too much money unless something happens, but we do go out and put out all the barricades and everything else and signs at all the roads that end up getting closed. So, and you get out of bed, turn on the water, so you can't even get out of your house without being affected by what we do. So, and on behalf of everybody, we do appreciate all your support. And lastly, real quick, the vent track is broken. Don't know when I'm getting it back.
Sidewalk plow.
But
Oh, no.
that's the newest sidewalk machine. May even be down to needing a motor. So I'm only telling you that because with the snow that's coming and everything, you may be hearing from people that sidewalks aren't getting done, and they'll be correct. So I'm just giving you a heads up.
Okay.
We
All right.
appreciate
Thanks,
your
Bruce.
work and
Thank
your
you. Yes.
department's work as well.
Good, thank you all.
Welcome.
Libraries.
Still morning.
Jane, this is going to be our last budget
Yes,
meeting with you.
It is. Yeah, I will definitely miss everything in the town.
Yeah, well, we've been so lucky to have you here.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, so just a little talk about some issues and challenges before we jump into the budget. Well, the good news, overall library usage increased by almost all measures from FY23 to FY24. Over 60,000 patrons visited the library last year, and that's up 34% from FY23. So everything's back in full swing. Over 134 items circulated, and that's a 6% increase from FY23. Electronic circulation was 21% of our total circulation, and that's an increase from 18% the previous year. So that's trending up, which is a national trend as well. Over 11,000 youth and adults enjoyed programs at the library. And by all measures, when we look at ourselves comparing to other Vermont libraries using the Department of Library Statistics, we serve the 13th largest population in the state, but we ranked 5th for circulation of physical items and 4th for attendance at programming. So we're punching above our weight in some key metrics and certainly holding our own in all other metrics. We're excited to be planning for the future of the library, and in October we released our strategic plan, 2024-2027, with a new mission and vision statement anchoring the plan. And the goals were developed, by the working with the staff, the trustees, stakeholders, and also using the data that we collected from the scoping study. We had 2 major community engagement pieces there. So our vision that together we will create a sustainable library that meets the needs of the growing community and where all are empowered to thrive. So the growth is definitely a theme you're hearing today. And we mean sustainable operationally and environmentally, of course. So planning for the renovation and expansion continued with the formation of the schematic design committee in June, and the library staff have been supporting that effort over the last 6 months as they work towards a final design and cost estimate. We're also, the capital campaign feasibility study, the internal assessment is complete, looking at the library's readiness for a capital campaign, and we're on to the next phase, which is prospect research. So as far as issues facing the library, it's no surprise that we continue to feel the pressures of lack of space, especially with the meeting rooms and the community rooms. The lack of meeting space in the community in general, we get many frustrated calls every week. People, support groups, committee meetings, people wanting one-on-one meetings, and there's just aren't that many spaces in town. So because of that, we saw a 123% increase in the use of our rooms in FY24. So over 1,600 people attended meetings, non-library meetings. And that's double from the year before. So happy to accommodate outside groups as much as we can, but generally it's after hours because we do use the single room for programming. Another challenge is the rising, and we'll get into that with the budget, is the rising cost of electronic collections and the volatility of the publishing models for electronic resources. Print prices have gone up as well. We're part of a consortium, GMLC, of Vermont libraries that has a shared electronic collection, Libby Overdrive, which benefited from ARPA funds for 2 or 3 years, and those funds are gone. So it's falling to local library budgets to keep that same level of service. Also feeling pressure on our outreach program, which is doing great. It's really serving well our community members who can't make it to the library, using the bookmobile, but also with individual visits to preschools and senior community. It's a 27-hour-a-week position that supports that, so looking forward to the future, that's definitely a position that will need to be expanded. Sarah recently started taking the bookmobile to Zephyr Place twice a month as well, so as the community grows, we get more and more requests and are having to turn some requests away. So a little bit of background. So as we look at the budget, and I don't know what page it is. Oh, Shirley's gone.
76.
Okay. Overall, the request for FY26 reflects a 4.4% increase. On the library operations, it's 4% to cover, increased costs. We were able to hold the request to 4% due to a couple of factors, decrease on the telephone line made possible by the move to a new Ethernet and cellular phone, which Shirley spearheaded. And we also budgeted several lines flat, training and conferences, bookmobile, computer equipment, and small equipment. So obviously, our big line and the only significant increase is our books line, which reflects a 7% increase. As I mentioned, the continuing pressures of increased electronic resource costs. So you can see that the electronic resource costs are gobbling up 42% of the budget, but 22% of the usage. So it's getting a little bit out of whack. But having said that, obviously that offering electronic resources serves a portion of the population who might not be at a stage of life where they're coming into the library. And we are seeing print reading across the age span. That's not like only old people read print. It is not. It is, you're seeing it in all demographics.
Well, if a library can't spend money on books, I don't know. What will?
Explain a little bit more about the electronic resource cost.
The digital resources?
Digital resources.
Yeah, so that is for access to ebooks, e-audiobooks, streamed video, and yeah, so for those three things. They're offered in a few different models, so we have this consortium collection that is shared, and we can also buy titles individually. When you buy an ebook or an e-audiobook, generally you're buying it for a limited time, so 1 or 2 years or 100 uses. All the publishers have different models, so it's not like a print book where you buy it and you own it. You can buy electronic resources to own, but it's prohibitively expensive.
Is that for use only in the library, or is that something people are able to access at home?
Oh, they can access anywhere in the, pretty much in the world, yeah.
It's essentially like a Kindle service?
You can read it on your Kindle if you like, but you know, the Kindle is a device. The content is coming from publishers. So you could read on an iPad, you can listen on your car, on Apple CarPlay.
So digital resources is the cost. It's not the hardware, it's the
Right. It's the digital book,
digital product.
access to the digital book.
I had a discussion one time, maybe this is off subject, but how much of the internet is free? You know, what's out there, you know, maybe 3%.
Yeah.
A lot of people, you know, I just wonder how much of the libraries we access, you know, if what we get if we get at home is 3%, is only 3% of it, how much of it is available at the library?
So you're talking about
Research.
ebooks and so there are open access ebook collections like Project Gutenberg, and generally we include those in the search. So I think, I don't know, there's 250,000 titles or something in the Gutenberg project. So there are, you know, freely open resources, but you're not going to get what people really want, which is the latest.
bestseller.
Yeah, but I mean, there are some wonderful open resources out there as well. As far as research, our databases come from a grant from the Department of Libraries, and they're free to all Vermonters, so they're paid for by the state, and those give you access to academic journals and databases that students might use for research to find authoritative information. You know, the internet's free, but you have to be able to evaluate it, so you want to make sure you're offering authoritative research resources as well.
And that's only available at, you know, at the library level, not available at the home level.
No, you can access it from anywhere. Yeah, the databases are,
Without a fee base?
no, no fee.
You just try to figure out, just think about that once in a while, you know? More than they say 3% of the data out there is free, the other 97% is behind a firewall for some particular reason or another.
Well, it's, yeah, that's a whole nother,
It's a complicated
yeah,
thought.
yeah, and that impacts more academic libraries with academic journals and behind firewalls. Yeah, and then a small increase to program presenter and materials to cover performer costs increase and their travel costs. So on the building overhead, there's an 8% increase, and that's due to double-digit increases, heating, fuel, utilities, and insurance. So, any question on the operations budget? No?
Nope, we're getting a big bang for our buck
Yes.
in libraries.
Yes. Well, it's certainly well used, you know, it's good to see. And then I have one capital.
Yeah, go ahead.
Page 87, and it should say FY '26 as the first column. I forgot to update this sheet, but the funding is 25,000, and I'm suggesting using it from ARPA, but I'll let Jane explain the project more.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so the Bookmobile, as you know, has been very active and has also been attending all the town events. Looking forward to continuing to provide outreach using Dottie, as she's fondly called. She's scheduled to be replaced in FY '28 at a cost of $300,000, which you didn't have on yours, right?
No.
We're looking at replacing her with something along the lines of a Sprinter van, which is an upgrade that would allow the Bookmobile to be used more extensively in the winter months. Right now, we only take her out twice a week during the winter to preschools because we can't use her at senior communities because we can't get the carts on and off the Bookmobile. A Sprinter van is much easier to roll on and roll off. Right now, Sarah puts the books in crates, loads the crates in her car. I mean, it's, you know, not that sustainable. So the requested funding through FY '28 is $25,000 annually, and as Eric said, there's $25,000 in ARPA funds approved. With the trade-in value, and obvious, it is not huge on a Bookmobile. If you can get someone to take it, it's probably $4,000. And it doesn't have a lot of mileage. It only has about, I think, 5,000 miles. But it's extremely heavy, and yeah. So there will be a shortfall, anticipating perhaps some fundraising to raise the funds.
Yeah. Yeah, and also thinking about the potential bond vote for the library project, maybe think about the scope of that bond if we have a gap for the Bookmobile too, as another item to think about moving ahead here.
Wasn't she originally fundraised for?
Yep, yeah, I think they raised $85,000 very quickly.
Right, that's
for
what I
her.
remember too.
Yeah, yeah. So, but she's, you know, it's so well suited to this community with the neighborhoods. And I do go out 2 or 3 times a summer and would encourage my successor to make sure to, and any of you, if you want to be a co-pilot one night, it is really invigorating to see how she engages people in the community. So Southridge is a new community, and you could just see people socializing, coming out of their houses, and yeah, it's
Questions?
it's appropriate to end up on the bookmobile, because I usually try to find some humor, cartoons or something like that for people who are departing as department heads. And I just happen to have one that has a bookmobile here on it. And it shows somebody driving the bookmobile, and there's a sound thing on top, and it goes, shh, shh. So I will give you this.
Oh, that's nice. That is nice.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And thank
for
you
everything.
for all your support of the library and, yeah.
Thank you so much for your service to this
Yeah.
town and this community, and
Oh, that's lovely. Thank you. Yeah, Reader's Digest, I love it. Yeah. Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So what is the board's pleasure? And Matt, we should get your opinion on this too, because you're up next. We're a half hour behind. And you've got a 15-minute presentation?
It took like three.
Okay.
It took like 3.5 last year.
let's do it.
Yeah, okay, let's.
Lunch isn't
let's
here
do
yet
that.
anyway, so.
And time.
Eric, outside services, is that,
That's just me,
it's
so
just you?
yeah, me and Shirley, and capital and debt, I put in a half hour for that. It's not
All
gonna
right,
take
okay.
that long, so it'll get back
We can
on
make
track
it-
after
Great.
lunch.
Yeah.
Okay, sounds good. Hit us.
All right, thanks for having me here today for planning and zoning. I think most of you are pretty familiar with the summary of services we provide in the areas of community development, both through our permitting and regulatory services, as well as long-range planning and the staffing of 7 or more citizen committees most of the time, involved in various aspects of the operation of the town or its long-range outlook, as well as our public outreach and education functions and our interdepartmental services we provide to our fellow town employees in terms of putting information together or helping with getting stuff to print out on that big printer next door. We find ourselves doing more and more of that kind of work as well as things change, and enjoy that work very much. So I'm not sure, because I haven't read the entire document, but I think we may have the least exciting departmental budget you'll see this time around, and that's just fine. We really aren't making any big movements in any of the categories, as far as I can tell. You'll see a few things that are zeroed out as the town has consolidated those costs or operations into multi-departmental accounts. So, ways we used to budget for printing or certain kinds of equipment might be zeroed out. But we've been able to do fairly well with what we've had in the last year. And broad brush, this is a very similar budget. Of course, our greatest expense now, over $500,000 is between our salary and benefits for our 5 full-time employees. Following that, we spend money on things like conferences and training, maintaining certifications for our planners, and membership in our professional organizations. I just do want to shout out that really does provide both us and the town with quite a lot of value. The ability to access the American Planning Association and its subchapters gives us access to the public information officer, the legislative tracking that I participate in, as well as continuing education, and even an ethics officer. If we have a question about something we're working on as a planner, we subscribe to a both national, regional, statewide ethics regime around any thorny issues that come up of, processes we're running, or if someone's concerned about a conflict or something they've been asked to do, we have resources we can tap for that. And all of that comes with that connection with the broader professional planning world, which we really like being able to do. It also, as someone who's going to be looking at recruiting for a position, it was Andrew's last day yesterday as our conservation planner. it really helps us offer value to prospective employees when we can go out and advertise those positions through the American Planning Association and say, yes, this is a real planning job, even though it's a very small town. And, you know, just so you know, the American Planning Association Small Towns Division is everybody under 30,000. So, we feel big here, but we're really quite small. The only other one I wanted to, I think, call out is, you know, we've kept our professional services budget at 0 last year and in the upcoming year. That's a budget line that we've, in the past, used to do some record scanning and try to prepare for a more digitized record system when it comes to our permitting. I continue to occasionally take vendor calls from software vendors who, you know, can help municipalities be more organized around these things. If you go research this sort of stuff, if you want to look at a permit in Colchester or South Burlington, you know, online, you'll find yourself interacting with a far more sophisticated system than ours, which is basically will let you download our Excel spreadsheet and look at it. So that's just a line that we're comfortable where we are today. We recognize it's a big jump to go to a bigger software package at some point. And, you know, we would look in the future to build that item up with some more scanning of our legacy records and then eventually transition over to something. The last thing I'll say about that is, as we interact interdepartmentally more and more about should a permit be issued or what should that subdivision review or new building review look like, the ability to move that review around without, you know, burning shoe leather up and down the stairs or up and down the road to the fire department gets really helpful. And just making sure everybody is looking at the same set of plans, everybody's getting their questions answered, and the applicant has a clear view of anything they need to do to make sure that the process keeps moving and they have a complete application with us. So that's why communities look towards those more expensive software packages eventually, is just to give everybody predictability and efficiency. Other than that, unless somebody has a particular question about a line in operating.
Well, just because it's a challenge to say the most boring, so I had to come up with something.
Sure.
Department salaries with overtime, our 5 FTE are not salaried, they're hourly?
They're hourly.
Oh.
Or 4, I'm not.
Thank God. Couldn't afford you then.
I'm just here in the normal rate. The one thing I'll say about that is, you know, by having, if I say so myself, a good and flexible operational plan, we're able to let people use compensatory time most of the time. And that has been most staff's choice when they've worked an evening meeting is to turn that into comp time and spend it some other time. And as long as we continue to be flexible and cross-train and work well together and are able to support that, I'm happy to be able to support that as a supervisor. We end up spending that as time when someone's not in the office, but it you know, makes their life more livable, and it means we're not writing a check for those overtime hours, which is great for us.
Yeah, well, that was kind of my thought, is that these are not surprise meetings or a surprise workload. They're part of the job that we're hiring them to do, to staff the function, so it should be part of their 40 hours, not overtime, in my opinion. But that's just something maybe think about in the future, rather than having to budget 6 hours of overtime for 4 people. That's per week for 4 people. That seems like a lot of money.
Yeah, we've taken a look at a high level, this organizational wide, just on you know, exempt, non-exempt studies. Yeah, it's something we'll continue to evolve to look at for all positions here.
And then I think you mentioned this miscellaneous planning studies.
Yep.
That's for asking someone else to do a study for you? Is that what that is?
Yeah, we typically use that money to leverage grant funds if there's a match required to bring a consultant in to do something, or when we're making our unified planning work program requests with the CCRPC. That's if there's a local match required for something we're looking for. That's what we'll use that money for. We anticipate at the very beginning of FY26 using some money to do publication on your new town plan.
I was kind of expecting, that was my second question is, should that, I guess it was a bump up in 25, so 25 and 26 were a little higher to accommodate that
Yep.
town plan. So we'll go back down to 26.
Depends on what everybody wants to do. Depends on what the town plan says we want to do.
Gene's taking notes, so that's not down next
Perform,
year.
Put this one in my ink instead of my pencil.
For form-based code, we use that line, and we were able to get some regional and grant funding to help with that, but it was certainly higher for that project,
Yeah.
so it can fluctuate with these big planning projects.
Thanks.
Matt has two brief capital on page 56 and 57, relating to Catamount Forest and Trail Management Fund. And I've recommended funding these using the ARPA priority list from this year for those projects as into both of these cost centers.
So I think, Eric, 56 is Catamount Community Forest infrastructure
Yep.
improvements. And in the notes here, you'll see the four items that we're working towards here. As ownership of some of the non-community forest land change, there's a need to maintain trail access. So that item number 1 is the new access trail from Governor Chittenden Road to the southern parcel. We don't know exactly when that will be the thing that's most needed. It depends on if there's a sale of the private property out there where the current access trail is. The 5 stream crossing structures, we've been speaking with the Family Center about that. That's a responsibility on the town, and something where the additional funding allocation Eric just mentioned is really going to help us with those bridges. And then there's the sort of perpetual conversation about the sheep barn, a historic and relatively antique structure that Bruce's folks are going to be out fixing a piece of blown-off roofing on, I think, next week. So we do some maintenance out there, but there's a bigger project and sort of a question mark of the maintenance of that structure. And then we do have, through the Community Projects Fund, other trail improvements, and then some of the treatment for invasive species out there, which really goes hand in hand with maintaining the value of the forestry projects that have taken place on Catamount. So those projects and the ecosystem value they create are much greater if we can keep up with the invasives treatment.
This is a little different than what we talked about at the committee meeting, so I'm just trying to catch up. So the 50,000 that's been approved was not necessarily for these stream crossing bridges, but that seems to be something that the Outdoor Family Center is got first on the list. So are we replacing that?
Yeah, my understanding for, the overall trail improvements, I think you can vector the bridges into that too. I know there's funding overall. No,
Yeah.
that's not the committee's position, okay.
Yeah.
That wasn't the conversation at the meetings.
Okay.
They were two distinct different projects, so.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I think it's fair to say we can't afford both, and so if you want them, it's gonna come out of the ARPA money, but, I think that's fair, but just, for the record, the discussion was, we even took the sheep barn out of the capital, assuming that it would probably have to be funded somewhere else, and so they worked really hard to make sure that we'd be able to get the 15,000 for those trail crossings this year, so, as long as the money's there somewhere. We get to our ARPA discussions, if we set it aside, it has to be clear, I think.
Yep.
Who owns the Brandon barn? Is it the Brandon barn they call it over on Mountain View
The
Road?
Brennan barn,
Yeah.
Brandon barn?
Town,
I think we own that, right?
town does.
Town owns that?
Yeah, we do.
So the sheep barn is also owned by the town?
Yep.
So is that a need, just, when repairs are needed on the Brennan barn, how is that paid for?
We still have a fund, I think, that we approved years ago, that the money comes out of that fund, that we started out with 30 grand, no, not anymore? It's gone?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it wasn't
Well,
very much.
Yeah. We ought to be taking a look at that at some point in time to get rid of it.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's been some time since we've made any repairs on Brennan Barn,
Yeah.
anything big, as far as I know.
So should the sheep barn be coming out of the community forest budget? kind of what I was getting to. It should be so,
Question is save it or let it go. For free dirt, so I'm just saying the question is save it or let it go.
To some degree, yeah, and I think the reason we see the sheep barn when we talk about community forest, both because of its physical location and also because there's some element of, in one of those documents from one of the funding sources, there's some element of, you know, there's this historic preservation idea of, at a minimum, the town would not demolish it outright, if I understand the restriction correctly. And so we're kind of stuck patching it up, knowing that a real project to stabilize it, you know, make it useful for something else is beyond the grasp of current funding.
how big is the sheep barn?
Might be a 30 by 40.
That was the general size, but 200 years ago, a barn.
Yeah, that's a guess, Mike. I'm not actually sure.
Has the Preservation Trust gone into that, looked at it, and done a report on it?
I can't tell you. I'd have to go back and look at what report we have from when the land transaction happened about the state of that structure. I don't think it was a full historic workup.
Is it listed on the National Park Service's historic structures?
Not the national, but it's on the state inventory of historic structures, which, you know, generally gets us eligibility to do a few things, various grant programs and things like that. But it's usually, I haven't looked recently, the barn grants come around about once a year, I think.
I think it used to be a maximum of $15,000.
Yeah.
Yep.
It wasn't enough to do much.
Yep. That's my recollection as well.
Eric, we did have a study done for Brennan though, wasn't it a couple $100,000 or something? It's a lot of money.
Or, yeah, that's ringing a bell.
Yeah. So right when I started here.
To make it a usable building or just to stabilize it?
I can't recall.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can dig that up.
There was a study done on that to see what we could, whether it could be saved or not. And there was a group that was very much involved in trying to save the Brennan barn because there's a particular 3-piece joint or something like that that is of historical significance, but it also is found somewhere else in town.
Yep. Great. If you folks want, we can turn the page 57, Town Trail Management Fund. And, you know, I can just say from the last few weeks working with Andrew on, you know, turning over where things are at with his position, you know, the conservation planner does an incredible amount of work keeping tabs on all of our sort of trail infrastructure needs. And, you know, going back to the 2020 SE group report on our infrastructure in our country parks and our primitive trails, we really have quite a lot. And so planning for what we're going to be able to maintain and replace, et cetera, is really important here. And we do have some boardwalk projects coming up, looking at the Schmoker Trail, and then the Mud Pond West Puncheon. Puncheons are those sort of lower at-grade wood plank structures. There, we've got a few things further out that aren't listed here. Mud Pond, I guess I would call it Mud Pond Boardwalk. Oak Hill Road toward Mud Pond, where the note I got in my turnover, which came originally from Simon Miles, is I'm not sure how we're ever going to afford to replace this thing. Because it, you know, in the SE group report, it involves helical piles, and, you know, it's a very, very significant structure to replace and do it in a way that state wetlands will let us impact it because it goes through wet. But we do have ongoing projects here. It's really nice to be able to be flexible with these depending on what the workforce can support or what the exigency is if we run into something. But really great part of our planning program is being able to just keep making a little progress on all of these resources that people like to use out there. So that's what this is.
I'm not sure when we were gonna get around to talking about this concept of, the conservation committee would like a penny for conservation or whatever. I wonder if maintaining all of this could be part of that sort of fund that it raised for, not just to buy new property, but to maintain the stuff we have, because as it keeps getting bigger, if we're gonna conserve something in a way that people can still access it in some manner, low impact manner, it still needs a parking lot, it still needs trail signs, it still needs, invasive management, and so the more property we add, the more cost that's gonna drive. So when we get around to talking about that whole concept, I think that might fit nicely together into a potential policy.
Yeah.
Because I see again that I didn't sit in on this conversation because I was on my other committee, but I think the concept was that we were asking for ARPA money on top of what we would normally get out of a capital fund. Yep. So again, we've replaced it this year, which is, probably has to happen, but it's not a one-for-one.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that was my approach, thinking, well, we'll have some funding from that external source, but as a way to just trim back on the operating transfer a little bit. But I agree, it's not sustainable to do it like that. And,
right.
Certainly the board can put some money back in there if it chooses.
Well, I'm just saying, I don't know, it wasn't on it, but I'm not sure that they would have put the trail counters in their ask if they knew it was gonna replace the trail maintenance that they had assumed they were getting out of the capital budget. So I guess now we're just saying, this is how much you get, you figure out where your priorities are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, on that note about, setting aside a penny or dedicated funding streams, I do believe in the history of South Burlington's open space penny, which goes back quite a long time.
Uh-huh.
It was initially about acquisition, and they added in maintenance and enhancements at some point, the penny for parks. I can look that up and let Eric know about it, but I came across that recently. So over time, yeah, you take these things on, and to have them give the public the value that they can provide, you need to provide infrastructure. And, sometimes we're looking at some of the items in this SE group that, were constructed in a different funding environment, maybe in a different permitting or regulatory environment. And you go, oh gosh, now we own this thing, and turns out it's going to be more expensive to fix or replace when it needs to be. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great.
Any questions for Matt? Okay.
Terrific. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Pleasure to keep working for the town and do everything we get to do down in planning and zoning. And thanks for your support, and I can drive home on nice, clear roads.
Thanks,
Always
Matt.
been grateful to all your help, Matt.
Thank you, Mike.
You've been very good.
So let's push outside services to after lunch.
Yeah, I'd suggest, I think the folks are coming in at 1 o'clock for the liquor license, and the police will be here. And you could take those as a chunk with general administration. Those are Shirley and I for
Great.
those and
Okay.
Deb. So.
Let's do that. Okay. So if there are no objections, we'll take a half hour for lunch at this point.
No.
So we are in recess.
Woo-hoo.